Doraemon's daily check-in system. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Dinosaur Hunter. Wow. Fat Tiger and Sunia's eyes lit up when they saw the food and toys in the shopping cart. Seeing this scene, the masked man, later changed to this, couldn't help but laugh a few times in his heart. Sure enough, children are children and can't escape the nature of loving toys. Ah, I know, you are a dinosaur hunter, Doraemon suddenly said. The masked man looked at Doraemon and smiled. You are the raccoon-shaped robot that escaped my pursuit. What raccoon-shaped robot? I'm an authentic cat-shaped robot. Doraemon scratched his head and blushed and said hastily. Doraemon, what is a dinosaur hunter? Shizuka asked Doraemon. Dinosaur hunters travel back and forth in the dinosaur era, mainly in the Mesozoic period, and kill dinosaurs and sell them to the rich at high prices. But this is strictly prohibited by the law of time and space, because some of their practices in this era will seriously pollute the environment of this era, causing the death or even extinction of some creatures. Then Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Shizuka and others looked at a trash can behind the masked man, which was constantly pouring out some chemicals. And in this era, even the ancestors of humans exist in the form of reptiles. Once they are extinct, not only you and me, but also him. Doraemon paused and pointed at the masked man. They will all disappear in the long river of history. Ah, how could it be? Not only Shizuka was surprised, but Nobita and others also showed expressions of surprise or shock. But the masked man said indifferently, alas, you people only know how to think nonsense. You should know that there are many dinosaurs in this era. Even if I kill 100 or 200 dinosaurs, nothing will happen. The masked man pulled out 2 guns from his waist while speaking, fired a few shots at the trash can behind him, and then put the guns back into his waist. So, how do you think about it? It's still the same as before. Not only these in front of you, I will also pay you a lot of rewards. Nobita-kun, Daichi-kun, we have met a few times and can be regarded as friends, right? Giving a friend a face is not a big deal, right? Ah, yes, we are friends. After hearing the masked man's words, Sunia said excitedly, and then ran towards the masked man, but he was knocked to the ground by Fat Tiger's iron fist before he took 2 steps. Sunia, you are crazy, Fat Tiger said angrily. I. Sunia touched his head and sat on the ground in annoyance. Looking at this scene, the masked man shook his head. In addition to the above, I will also use our time machine to send you back to Japan. Ah, send us back to Japan. After hearing this, Nobita, Doraemon and others were moved. This temptation is very attractive to them, but no one asked to compromise. The sunset gradually sank into the mountains, and the sky and the earth were filled with the afterglow of the sunset. The masked man pointed to the river next to Nobi Daichi and others. This is our base below. Do you want to come and play? No. Doraemon directly rejected it. It's really boring. I'll give you another night to think about it. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer tomorrow. The masked man got into the aircraft next to him. With a roar, the 3 aircraft flew towards the sunset. After watching the 3 aircraft disappear in front of them, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Although the masked man kept smiling at them, but everyone knew that the masked man had bad intentions, so they were all nervous when facing the masked man just now. Before they knew it, it was night. After everyone built a fire, they gathered around it. The red fireworks shone on everyone's face, and everyone had a different expression. Ding, you can check in today. Do you want to check in? Check in. Check in successfully. Get 1 million yen. Looking at the 2 million yen on the system panel, Nobi Daichi looked helpless. No, I really can't stand this kind of life. Let's hand Pisuke over to the masked man. Maybe he will really send us back to Japan. Sunia suddenly stood up from the fire, looking unfair. He was really fed up with this life of running around. But this is too pitiful for Pisuke. Shizuka looked reluctant. How could it be? They won't kill Pisuke, they just sell him. Then Pisuke will live in the home of a rich person. How good is that? Sunia argued forcefully. But haven't we worked so hard for so long, just to send Pisuke back to Japan? Shizuka still disagreed with Sunia's idea. No, we have worked so hard for so long to return to Japan ourselves, not to send Pisuke back to Japan. These are two different things. No, this is the same thing, Sunia. Fat Tiger walked to Sunia and pressed his shoulder to explain. You are our partner, and Pisuke is also our partner. How can we do this to our partners? Well, okay. Sunia finally gave up the idea of giving Pisuke to the masked man. Then what should we do now? Shizuka asked a very critical question at this time. Of course, we should fly to the destination quickly, Doraemon. Take out the bamboo dragonfly. Seeing that everyone finally reached a consensus on how to deal with Pisuke, Nobita breathed a sigh of relief, and was also a little moved. After hearing Shizuka's question, he instinctively said what was in his heart, or what everyone was thinking. This. Doraemon lowered his head, took out a few wilted bamboo dragonflies from his 4-dimensional pocket, and said to everyone embarrassedly, well, I have to tell you one thing. Our bamboo dragonflies have been damaged due to excessive use in the canyon today, and can't be used. What should we do? We can't escape the pursuit of the masked man. Sunia said anxiously. Follow me. After saying this, Doraemon extinguished the fire on the ground, and then led everyone to the source of another river. Follow this river, we will reach Japan after a long distance. Doraemon pointed to the river in front of everyone. But even so, the masked man can catch up with us quickly. Fat Tiger said. That's right, what should we do? Looking at everyone who was lost in thought, Sunia suddenly walked to the side of the shopping cart and took out a toy racing car and said, do you think this will work? Then everyone gathered next to Sunia and listened to him talk about the next escape plan. Daichi Nobi knew about Sunia's plan, but the reason he didn't say it before Sunia was that he was not as skilled in controlling the car as Sunia. Chapter 77, Unexplained Sense of Danger. In a dark space, a man with blonde hair, a round body and sunglasses was sitting on a chair, shaking a goblet in his hand, and bright red wine was swaying in the glass. A projection suddenly lit up in front of him, and the next moment, the figure of the masked man appeared in the projection. After hearing a few words from the masked man, the man sitting on the chair suddenly stopped shaking the goblet in his hand. So, the two dinosaurs that are close to humans have been obtained? It's almost the same as obtaining them. This time I came, mainly to invite the boss, to play a game of hunting humans in person. It seems quite interesting. The boss smiled. Suddenly, a few bloodstains appeared on the screen, and the masked man said, it seems that those guys have started to act. I will go and prepare first, boss. Yeah. Then the projection in front of the boss disappeared. The sound of dinosaurs came from behind the boss. Pa. The boss was careless and a few drops of red wine dripped from the goblet onto his clothes. Bang. The boss dragged his fat body and jumped off the chair, then kicked down the chair next to him. Several lights suddenly lit up in the dark space, shining on the boss and a Spinosaurus tied with ropes behind him. The boss walked in front of the Spinosaurus, picked up a special whip on the ground, and whipped the Spinosaurus in front of him. The Spinosaurus screamed in pain, but the boss did not stop his actions. Bang. Finally, with a loud bang, looking at the Spinosaurus lying on the ground, the boss wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, then put down the special whip in his hand and turned around. In front of him, a series of rectangular apertures suddenly lit up, and the aperture stretched forward from large to small. The boss walked forward through the rectangular apertures, and on the left and right sides of each rectangular aperture were dinosaur models, which looked almost the same as when they were alive, and looked like they were frozen to death. Two of the empty spaces were marked with the names of Bisu and Zyochiran. Finally, he reached the end of the aperture. A dinosaur fossil appeared in front of the boss. From the shelf next to him, the boss picked up a cannon weapon and a helmet. After putting the helmet on his head and covering his eyes, the boss put the weapon on his shoulder. Boom. With a loud noise, accompanied by a burst of strong sparks, the dinosaur fossil in front of the boss exploded directly. Ha 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 ha, the boss's unbridled laughter echoed in the dark space. Boom. 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 On the vast yellow land, several racing cars rushed down from a high slope, and above the racing cars were several spaceships chasing closely. The boss sat on top of the spaceship, holding a gun in his hand, and shouted to Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others below through a specific sound amplification method. "I'll give you one last chance. I hope you surrender, otherwise, But the racing cars below showed no sign of stopping. "Humph, if you don't accept my toast, you'll have to drink the penalty wine." The boss raised the gun in his hand and aimed at a racing car below. Bang! A wheel of the car that was aimed at was suddenly blown to pieces. The car with a broken wheel rubbed the ground and spun for a few rounds before stopping. The boss broke the wheels of the remaining cars in the same way as before, and all the cars stopped. "Okay, I only broke one wheel of your car and saved your life. Now don't be ungrateful. Leave Pizu and Charmander to me," the boss said smugly while sitting on the aircraft, not noticing that the masked man who went down to check on Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others was sweating more and more. But even though the masked man was unwilling, he still walked up to the boss. "Boss, we were deceived. The people in the car are all fake." After hearing this, the boss looked at the car with the cockpit opened. One by one, Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others appeared in front of him with dolls holding steering wheels, just as the masked man said. Seeing this, the boss's face turned cold. "You mean the hunting game for humans? Is it to hunt these dolls?" "Yes. I'm sorry, boss. This is my mistake. I will make up for it," the masked man said firmly with cold sweat, and then drove a spaceship to escape quickly under the boss's dangerous gaze, and then went to find Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others. Nobita-kun, you did a great job," the masked man said bitterly while sitting in the cockpit of the spaceship. In a canyon, a bamboo raft was floating on the water in the middle of the canyon. Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others were sitting on this bamboo raft. The bamboo raft was now located in a dense water forest in the middle of the canyon. Under the cover of the dense trees, the environment around Nobi Daichi and others was relatively dark. Fat Tiger was paddling the bamboo raft in the back, and Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others surrounded Sunia, who was controlling the toy car with the remote control. "I can't control it anymore. It seems that I have been discovered." Suddenly Sunia stopped his movements, raised his head, and said to everyone, "Have we been discovered so soon?" Doraemon was a little surprised, and then said nervously, "Sunia, throw away the remote control in your hand quickly. The masked men are professional hunters and can find us based on the radio waves." "Is that so?" After hearing what Doraemon said, Sunia hurriedly threw the remote control in his hand into the water. "Look, they are chasing us." Shizuka pointed to a large gap above their heads. Everyone looked up and saw the previous spaceships through the gaps between the branches and leaves above, and it seemed that there was one more. There is no forest in front of us," Sunia said in fear as he looked at the front of their group. Looking at this urgent situation, Fat Tiger hurriedly inserted the paddle in his hand to stop the bamboo raft from entering the empty river in front. Nobi Daichi also hurriedly grabbed a tree next to him. Seeing that the bamboo raft was no longer moving forward, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Driving the spaceship and looking at the water forest below, the masked man was surprised. "No, the radio wave detection instrument pointed to this place. How could it be gone?" Then it stopped above the water forest where Nobita Daichi and others were and observed everywhere. Nobita, Doraemon and others looked at the several spaceships flying back and forth in the sky and dared not breathe. The situation was temporarily deadlocked, and the masked man was searching above and did not leave. Nobita Daichi and others sat on the bamboo raft, not daring to make any movement, waiting for the masked man to leave. At this time, Nobita Daichi carefully walked in front of Fat Tiger and wanted to take the bamboo pole from Fat Tiger's hand. He wanted to drive the bamboo raft to the dense water forest behind. But just as he walked in front of Fat Tiger, Nobita Daichi stopped, relying on his keen perception twice that of humans. He felt a sense of danger coming, and the masked man above must not be him, so there was only the river below them. Chapter 78 Mutated Mosasaur. Suddenly, the bamboo raft where Nobi Daichi and others were located began to float with the fluctuating water surface, and a huge black figure appeared underwater not far behind the bamboo raft. What is that? Now not only Nobi Daichi saw it, but Shizuka and others also saw it, but they were more curious and surprised. but Nobi Daichi could feel that the sense of danger was getting stronger and stronger, and he didn't say much to the surprised Fat Tiger. Nobi Daichi grabbed the bamboo pole in Fat Tiger's hand and quickly paddled the bamboo raft away from the dark water forest in the face of astonishment and fear on the faces of others. Dazzy, what are you doing? There are masked men outside? Doraemon looked at Nobi Daichi's behavior and became anxious, then walked in front of Nobi Daichi and wanted to snatch the bamboo pole in his hand to make Nobi Daichi stop his stupid behavior. But Nobi Daichi did not let Doraemon succeed. He first pushed Doraemon down with one hand, then stretched his hand back and paddled with both hands. When Nobita, Fat Tiger and others wanted to stop Nobita Daichi, the bamboo raft they were on had already left the dense forest and came to the open water. Now the others were too lazy to stop Nobita Daichi, they just wanted him to paddle faster and get away from the pursuit of the masked man. But before this thought came up for a few seconds, the masked man's laughter came from the sky. Haha, you finally came out. Then the masked man turned his head and looked at the boss sitting next to him. Boss, please give me your instructions. You did a good job this time. Okay, stay aside for a while, I'll play with these little guys. As he said that, the boss picked up a shoulder gun from the side of his seat, stuffed it with sticky bullets, and aimed at Nobita Daichi and others standing on the bamboo raft. Ah, no. But Doraemon, Nobita and others didn't know that the ammunition fired by the boss was actually sticky bullets, so they all dodged everywhere. Swish, swish, swish. Sticky bullets shot towards the bamboo raft where Nobita Daichi, Nobita and others were. When seeing the sticky bullet hit the bamboo raft, Doraemon exclaimed, "It's a sticky bullet." The others felt relieved after seeing that the sticky bullet didn't seem to be very dangerous. Fat Tiger took out a baseball bat and a baseball cap from somewhere and looked at the sticky bullets flying from all directions in the sky. After aiming at one, he hit it with the baseball bat. Yeah. Fat Tiger made a victory gesture with his right hand. It turned out that the sticky bullet he hit bounced back and stuck directly on the boss's head. The boss used his hand to pull the sticky bullet that stuck to his hair. Hiss, with a sound of sucking in cold air, the boss successfully got the sticky bullet off his head, and at the same time, his golden wig was also taken off. Little guys, it seems that I have to show you some color. The boss's somewhat angry voice reached the masked man's ears, and the masked body trembled, knowing that Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others were in trouble. As expected, the masked man took out the remaining sticky bullets from the shoulder cannon, took a real shell from the seat, and stuffed it into the shoulder cannon. But before the boss could aim at Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others, a cry of surprise came from his men behind him. Turning his head, the boss saw a scene that made him both scared and excited. A huge mosasaur jumped out of the water and swallowed a spaceship in one bite. Looking at this mutant mosasaur that was obviously more than twice as big as the average mosasaur, the boss was extremely excited. After all, this kind of mutant dinosaur is very rare, and the collection value is much higher than that of ordinary dinosaurs. In his opinion, the value of the mutant mosasaur is even higher than that of Bisu and Charmander. Therefore, the boss aimed the shoulder cannon with the shell stuffed in it at the mosasaur directly below without hesitation. Ah, what kind of monster is this? Fat Tiger, Sunia and others tightly grasped the bamboo raft that was undulating with the surging river. Looking at the horrifying scene behind them, they were frightened and anxious. This is a mosasaur, but it doesn't look like one because it's much bigger than the average mosasaur. This time it was Nobita who explained. There were so many dinosaurs recorded in the dinosaur atlas, but he only remembered a few dinosaurs that impressed him. As the overlord of the water, the mosasaur, Nobita naturally had a deep impression of it, just like he also remembered the overlord of the land, the Tyrannosaurus rex. The change in the water flow caused by the mutant mosasaur's jump caused the bamboo raft where Nobita and others were drifting. Nobita simply threw the bamboo pole in his hand aside, and the bamboo pole didn't play a role in such a turbulent water flow. Just when Nobita, Doraemon and others were hoping to leave here quickly, a loud noise suddenly came from behind them, accompanied by a huge wave. The mutant mosasaur shouted angrily in the direction of the boss, and sank into the water. Looking at the blood of the mosasaur that dyed a large area of water red, the boss was a little helpless. What a pity, I didn't hit its head. Seeing the boss's ruthless methods, the masked man was trembling in his heart. This was the first time he saw the boss take action. You know, he only anesthetized the dinosaurs when he captured them. As for beating and injuring dinosaurs, he did it before, but the number of times he did it was very few. And it was only for those dinosaurs with low value. The moment the mutant mosasaur came out, he already understood the value of the mutant mosasaur. He couldn't help but sigh. The boss is the boss. He is not short of money. Okay, that mosasaur is injured, and it won't be able to escape far for a while. Let's catch Pisu and Charmander first, and then catch this mutant mosasaur after we have all the tools. The boss said to the masked man who was dazed on the side. Yes, boss. The masked man said quickly. Then they looked at Nobi Daichi, Doraemon and others who were already quite a distance away from them. Humph, let me teach you a lesson, the boss said, and stuffed the ammunition into the shoulder gun again. But before he could aim at Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others, he heard the masked man screaming, "Boss, down there." Huh. The boss looked down in response, and this sight almost scared him out of his wits. After seeing the mutant mosasaur, he had already adjusted the flight altitude of the spaceship, but he still underestimated the height that the mutant mosasaur could jump. Boom. Facing this critical moment, the boss instinctively pressed the switch of the shoulder cannon in his hand. Looking at the mutant mosasaur that was hit by the cannonball and fell back into the water, the boss wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. This time he learned his lesson and adjusted the spaceship to a height that the mosasaur could not reach no matter what. Boss, those little guys. The boss looked in the direction pointed by the masked man, and it turned out that the bamboo raft where Nobi Daichi and others were was overturned by the huge waves caused by the mutant mosasaur falling into the water. Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others also fell into the water. Chapter 79 5-Element Bloodline activated. Let's go. Follow them. After the boss finished speaking, he drove the spaceship towards the direction where Nobi Daichi and others were. Help, I can't swim. Nobita started shouting loudly. After falling into the turbulent river, Doraemon hurriedly swam to Nobita and grabbed him. Shizuka, Fat Tiger, and Sunia also swam over. Everyone gathered together and was rushed down by the turbulent river. As for why they didn't see Nobi Daichi, they didn't have time to think so much at this time. Nobi Daichi instinctively grabbed the bamboo raft with his hands after the bamboo raft was overturned. With his twice the adult physique, he barely grabbed the bamboo raft. As for the others, he was powerless. Nobi Daichi, who was lying on the bamboo raft, tightly grasped the constantly rising and falling bamboo raft and looked around and didn't find Doraemon, Nobita and others. Unknowingly, he and Nobita, Doraemon and others had already dispersed. Just as he was thinking, a huge figure suddenly appeared underwater in front of the bamboo raft where he was. Nobi Daichi's pupils shrank, and the sense of fatal danger made his hair stand on end. The next moment, a huge mouth surrounded him and the bamboo raft. It's over. The last thought in Nobi Daichi's mind emerged. At this dangerous moment, he didn't even think of teleporting. Who has time to think so much at a critical moment? Teleporting is not his instinct, and the mutant mosasaur's appearance is too abrupt. Besides, it's useless for him to teleport. There are waters all around. He can't guarantee that there are no other dangers besides this mutant mosasaur. As for transforming into Emperor Man, it's even more impossible. He would have died as soon as he took out the Emperor belt from the system space. But the next moment, what surprised Nobi Daichi was that a golden light suddenly rushed out of his body. When the golden light dissipated, Nobi Daichi had transformed into Emperor Man. This process was just a moment. Nobi Daichi, who had transformed into Emperor Man, instinctively supported the upper jaw of the mosasaur's huge mouth with both hands. After feeling the huge bite force of the mosasaur, Nobi Daichi was surprised. How could he become so weak? Nobi Daichi's hands that supported the upper jaw of the mutant mosasaur were actually bent. At the same time, Nobi Daichi felt that his current state was extremely unstable. The mutant mosasaur didn't care what Nobi Daichi was thinking. When he saw that his mouth couldn't close, he increased the strength of his bite. System, what's going on? Nobi Daichi had no choice but to ask the system for help. Ding, the host used the power of the Emperor's belt to transform into the Emperor before, and just now, when the host encountered fatal danger, the Emperor's armor automatically protected the host, using the 5 element of blood to transform. The Emperor who uses the 5 element of blood to transform is the host's own power, and the previous power is just the power of the Emperor's belt. But, system, didn't you say before that I don't have the 5 element of blood? Ding, when the host first transformed into the Emperor, the 5 element of blood were hidden in the host's body by the system. What, is that so? Nobi Daichi was a little surprised. Then why do I feel that my state is extremely unstable? The host's 5 element bloodline has not yet been fully activated. According to the system's estimate, the host can only maintain 1 minute of the Emperor hero with the 5 element bloodline that has not yet been fully activated. As the system said, Nobi Daichi found that his power was gradually weakening and disappearing. System, is there any way? The system remained silent, and Nobi Daichi knew that the system had no way. Using both hands to support the upper jaw of the mutant mosasaur, Nobi Daichi jumped into the turbulent river. Feeling the increasingly weak power of the Emperor armor and the Emperor armor that was disappearing from time to time, and then looking at the mutant mosasaur chasing him from behind, Nobi Daichi had no choice but to escape, but he knew that this would not work. At this time, Nobi Daichi suddenly thought of something. Ding, you can clock in today. Do you want to clock in? Clock in. Clock in successfully, the host's special abilities telekinesis and teleportation disappear, and the protagonist's overall quality increases to 10 times that of an adult. The next moment, Nobi Daichi felt his mind was unusually clear, and his body suddenly became extremely flexible. Originally, Nobi Daichi was still upset that he had lost his teleportation and telekinesis. If he had known this would happen, he would not have clocked in. After all, without teleportation, the possibility of him escaping from the mutant mosasaur has become smaller, but after a feeling, he may not be able to escape the pursuit of the mutant mosasaur with his current overall quality. But Nobi Daichi was not happy for a few seconds. The next second, ding, the host's overall quality is 10 times that of an adult, meeting the conditions for activating the 5 element bloodline. Consuming 10 times the overall quality, the host's 5 element bloodline is successfully activated. Nobi Daichi. Although he didn't want to admit it, Nobi Daichi always felt that the system was trying to make trouble, giving and receiving, receiving and giving. But the result is always good. Looking at the Emperor armor that has been completely materialized and will no longer be looming, Nobi Daichi breathed a sigh of relief. Is he so weak by transforming on his own? He even lost the ability to fly. Nobi Daichi thought a lot, but the speed of thinking was so fast that only a few seconds passed in the outside world. After swimming to a bank of the canyon, Nobi Daichi hurriedly climbed up with his hands and feet. Nobi Daichi, who climbed to the top of the canyon, breathed a sigh of relief, while the mutant mosasaur below was still wandering. Nobi Daichi suddenly thought of a very serious problem, and then opened the system space. Sure enough, the Emperor belt in the system space had disappeared. Nobita, hold on to me. Doraemon said to Nobita next to him. Yeah. Nobita nodded vigorously. Everyone hold on tight, don't let go. Then Doraemon said to Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia. But just as he finished speaking, a stone pillar appeared behind them. Seeing this, Nobita and Fat Tiger were forced to separate their holding hands, and that's how Nobita and Doraemon, Fat Tiger, Sunia, and Shizuka split into 2 teams and fell into 2 caves with more turbulent water. The masked man looked at Nobita who fell into the cave, and Doraemon and others said to the boss next to them, Boss, they fell into 2 caves. The exit of these 2 caves is a waterfall. Let's go to the waterfall and wait for them. Yeah. The boss hummed and said nothing more. Nobita and Doraemon quickly rushed out of the cave along the water flow. Before they could breathe a sigh of relief, they arrived in front of the waterfall and then fell down. Ah! Nobita screamed instinctively in the face of this dangerous situation. Doraemon, who fell with Nobita, kept searching for props in his 4-dimensional pocket while falling down. Ah, I found it. Traffic safety amulet. Traffic safety amulet. Its function is to protect the person wearing it from traffic accidents and other injuries. Then Doraemon took out 2 pieces of paper from his 4-dimensional pocket and threw one of them to Nobita. The next moment, Nobita and Doraemon fell safely into the edge of the river below the waterfall. Climbing up from the edge of the river and walking to the woods next to it, Nobita held onto a tree and shook his head to wake himself up. Doraemon also climbed up from the edge of the river and walked to Nobita's side. "Nobita, are you okay?" "Nothing." Then the two heard a roar coming from the waterfall behind them, and Nobita and Doraemon quickly hid behind the tree. Through the gaps between the trees, the two saw Fat Tiger, Tsunia, and Shizuka, who were now wrapped in a net, and above the net was a spaceship. Regarding the protagonist's power being taken back by the system at will, I did not take into account the particularity of the Doraemon world, so a major adjustment needs to be made to the protagonist, and there will be no more such operations of taking it back at will in the future. Chapter 80: The problem of the system arbitrarily taking back the protagonist's power. Regarding the fact that the protagonist's power was randomly taken back by the system, I did not take into account the particularity of the Doraemon world, so a major adjustment was needed to the protagonist, and the operation of randomly taking back the protagonist's power would no longer appear in the future. Another most important and main reason is that the protagonist has too many special abilities, and the author can't control them all. Chapter 81: Time Ball. Doraemon, Nobita and Doraemon did not dare to go out when they saw this situation, and could only hide behind the tree and watch. Then they saw the spaceship carrying the unconscious Fat Tiger, Tsunia and Shizuka into the waterfall. After seeing that there was no movement outside, Nobita and Doraemon walked out of the woods. "Doraemon, we have to save Shizuka and the others." "Yeah, I know." Doraemon nodded hurriedly. "Piper-Zoo, as for you." Looking at Pizu crawling towards him, Nobita hesitated for a moment. "It's too dangerous over there, you just stay here." Piper-Zoo was obviously unhappy and insisted on following Nobita. No choice, Nobita had to pick up Pizu, stuffed Pizu into a box, and then put the box on a stone behind a tree. Then Nobita said to Doraemon, "Doraemon, let's go save Shizuka, Tsunia and the others." "Okay." Then Nobita and Doraemon rushed towards the direction of the waterfall. Nobita walked faster than Doraemon. When he reached the waterfall, he grabbed a rock with both hands and climbed up. Doraemon followed closely and also climbed up by grabbing a rock. Just when the two of them were concentrating on climbing the rocks beside the waterfall and were about to climb up to the middle of the waterfall and enter the waterfall, a monitor emitting purple light and shaped like an eyeball suddenly flew to the side of Doraemon and then stretched out two mechanical arms to grab Doraemon. "Ah, let me go." Doraemon, who was caught by the mechanical arms, kept tossing and turning, but it was useless, and he couldn't get rid of the mechanical arms at all. Nobita, who was climbing above, heard Doraemon's cry for help and hurriedly looked down and then saw Doraemon caught by the mechanical arms. "Let go of Doraemon," Nobita said and jumped down to where Doraemon was below. Then Nobita grabbed the purple eyeball-shaped monitor flying above Doraemon, but it could easily bear the weight of Nobita and Doraemon. That's not all. It was flying towards the waterfall with Nobita and Doraemon. After flying through the waterfall for a while, the purple eyeball-shaped monitor brought Nobita and Doraemon to a wide circular venue. Bang! Clang! Pizu kept hitting the box that contained it. It hadn't stopped since Nobita put it in the box. Click. Finally, the box fell off the stone, and the switch of the box was turned on. Then Pizu climbed out of the box. Following the footsteps of Nobita and Doraemon, Pizu climbed towards the waterfall. Puff. Pizu successfully entered the water after climbing for a while, and then swam upstream along the waterfall. However, the impact of the waterfall was so great that how could a small Pizu climb up? As expected, Pizu fluttered and was washed back into the water by the waterfall. Pizu. Just as Pizu wanted to climb up the waterfall again, he suddenly heard someone's voice. Turning his head and looking at the figure behind him, Pizu showed a trace of joy in his eyes. Fortunately, it's not too late. Looking at Pizu, who was about to climb the waterfall again, Nobi Daichi breathed a sigh of relief. Plop. Without hesitation, Nobi Daichi jumped into the water. Nobi Daichi quickly swam to Pizu's side. Then Nobi Daichi hugged Pizu and swam underwater. Soon Nobi Daichi found what he wanted to find, a group of eyeball-like monitors. Nobi Daichi casually turned over an eyeball-shaped monitor lying on the bottom of the water. The eyeball-shaped monitor that had been motionless suddenly opened its eyes, and then light appeared from its eyes. However, unlike the eyeball-shaped monitor of Nobita and Doraemon that emitted purple light, the light emitted from the eyes of the eyeball-shaped monitor in front of Nobi Daichi was green. Nobi Daichi breathed a sigh of relief after watching the time-space ball in front of him gradually float up from the bottom of the water. Fortunately, it was still the same as in the original movie. Then, while Prehistoric, who was hugged by Nobi Daichi, was in shock, more time balls emitting green light emerged from the bottom of the water. Perhaps all the time balls had gathered, and each time ball emitted a green light that shone on Nobi Daichi and Prehistoric, dyeing the waters around Nobi Daichi green. The next moment, when all the green lights and time balls disappeared, Nobi Daichi and Prehistoric also disappeared from the spot. Ah, it hurts. When the purple eyeball-shaped monitor brought Nobita and Doraemon to the circular venue, it threw Nobita and Doraemon down from the air. Of course, the purple eyeball-shaped monitor did not drop Nobita and Doraemon from a very high height. After all, the boss of the masked man had not had enough fun, so how could he let Nobita and Doraemon die so easily? The next moment, a spotlight shone on Nobita and Doraemon, and another spotlight that lit up at the same time shone on the masked man and the boss. Nobita-kun, I hope you can quickly bring Pizwan. Strange, why is Daichi-kun not here? The masked man paused here, but immediately said, forget it, Daichi-kun will be caught by me sooner or later. Nobita-kun, please hand over Pizhu, otherwise. The masked man clapped his hands, and a wall on the circular field opposite Nobita and Doraemon suddenly split in the middle. Then a prison van carrying Shizuka, Sunir and Fat Tiger came out, and a spotlight appeared and shone on the prison van carrying Shizuka and the other two. What? Nobita and Doraemon looked at each other after hearing what the masked man said, their eyes full of shock and anxiety. Although they only saw Shizuka and the other two being caught before, in their opinion, Nobi Daichi must have been caught as well, but in another place. If they didn't catch Nobi Daichi, and Nobi Daichi wasn't with them, then where was Nobi Daichi? But in this situation, they could only be secretly anxious in their hearts. Nobita's already complicated mood became even more chaotic after Nobi Daichi disappeared, and the masked man's coercion. He blurted out without thinking. Impossible, I won't hand over Prehistoric to you. I'm sorry. The masked man sneered and pressed a switch. Then a wall in front of Nobita and Doraemon on the right suddenly split in the middle. Roar. With a loud roar, a huge Tyrannosaurus Rex emerged from it and walked towards the prison van containing Shizuka and the other two. When it walked in front of the prison van containing Shizuka and the other two, the Tyrannosaurus Rex opened its bloody mouth and bit the prison van. Fat Tiger, Sunir, and Shizuka in the prison van screamed in fear when they saw the Tyrannosaurus Rex biting towards them. Bang! The Tyrannosaurus Rex successfully bit the prison van with its huge mouth. Nobita-kun, I advise you to think about it carefully and tell me where you hid Prehistoric. Don't want to tell? It's okay, look at your friends. The masked man standing on the high platform outside the circular venue laughed at Nobita. Nobita lowered his head after hearing what the masked man said, not daring to look up at the dangerous situation that Shizuka and the other two were facing. His inner struggle made him clench his hands tightly, and the situation he was facing now made him really unsure of what to do. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Spinosaurus. Looking at the Tyrannosaurus Rex tearing at the cage, and listening to the screams of Shizuka and others, Nobita's clenched fists gradually loosened. Just when Nobita wanted to say something, a light suddenly flashed from a place not far from Nobita and Doraemon. When the light dissipated, Nobita, Daichi and Prehistoric appeared in front of everyone. Daichi, Prehistoric. Looking at Nobita, Daichi and Prehistoric who suddenly appeared in front of them, Nobita and Doraemon happily ran towards Nobita, Daichi and Prehistoric. Daichi, where have you been? Nobita ran to Nobita Daichi and asked hurriedly. Let's not talk about this now, let's save Shizuka, Sunir and others first. Nobita Daichi looked at Shizuka, Sunir and others not far away and said, oh, by the way, Shizuka and others haven't been saved yet. Nobita suddenly came to his senses after hearing what Nobita Daichi said. Looking at Nobi Daichi and Pisuke who suddenly appeared below, the masked man turned to the boss standing next to him and said respectfully, "Boss, the prey we want to catch has appeared. Should we lock up the Tyrannosaurus Rex to prevent it from hurting Pisuke?" "No." The boss raised his hand to stop him. "Pisuke and Charmander are no longer important to me. Compared to Pisuke and Charmander, I'm more interested in how the Tyrannosaurus Rex will eat them." Bang! A loud noise sounded in the space where Nobi Daichi and others were. Nobi Daichi, Nobita, and Doraemon looked up and found that it was the Tyrannosaurus Rex that bit the iron cage that held Shizuka and the other two and threw it in one direction and then fell to the ground. Shizuka and the other two in the iron cage were dizzy and couldn't stand up for a while. Doraemon, looking at that Tyrannosaurus Rex, "Don't you feel familiar?" Looking at the scene in front of him, Nobi Daichi suddenly spoke. Familiar?" Doraemon looked at the Tyrannosaurus Rex with its mouth wide open, walking towards Shizuka and the other two, and suddenly an unbelievable idea came to his mind. "Daichi, what do you mean?" "Yes, it is very likely the Tyrannosaurus Rex that ate Momotaro's rice ball before," Nobi Daichi said to Doraemon with an unbelievable look on his face. "But, this is just your own guess, Daichi. What if it is not?" Hearing this, Nobi Daichi interrupted Doraemon. "What if it is? There is no harm in trying." "That's right." Doraemon thought about it and felt that it was true. He made up his mind. Then he waved his hands and shouted at the Tyrannosaurus Rex that was walking towards Shizuka, Sunia and the other two. "Hey, I'm here. Roar." After hearing Doraemon's shout, the Tyrannosaurus Rex slowly turned around and looked at Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon with his huge head. You squat down." Although Nobi Daichi asked Doraemon to try to see if it was possible to subdue this dinosaur, because this Tyrannosaurus Rex was likely the Tyrannosaurus Rex that had eaten Momotaro's rice balls before. But looking at the huge body of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, Doraemon couldn't help being afraid. Roar. When Doraemon finished speaking, the Tyrannosaurus Rex standing in front of Nobi Daichi and others roared. Looking at this situation, Nobi Daichi was also a little confused. This has changed. It shouldn't be. But the next moment Nobi Daichi put his heart at ease. It turned out that the Tyrannosaurus Rex roared at them to show goodwill to them. Looking at the Tyrannosaurus Rex squatting on the ground obediently, Nobi Daichi felt a little awkward, no matter how he looked at it, but it didn't matter. The important thing was that this Tyrannosaurus Rex was indeed the Tyrannosaurus Rex that Doraemon had fed Momotaro rice balls before. The masked man and the boss standing on the high platform were also shocked when they saw this scene. What's going on? Why did the Tyrannosaurus Rex suddenly rebel? However, they could only keep this question in their hearts because no one would answer them. Shizuka, Sunia, and Fat Tiger got out of the broken iron cage one after another and then walked to the side of Nobita and Doraemon. After some twists and turns, Nobita and others successfully gathered again. "Lower your head," Doraemon said to the Tyrannosaurus Rex squatting in front of him. Then Doraemon climbed onto the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Of course, Nobita and others also came up together. Seeing that everyone had already sat on the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, Doraemon had the momentum of commanding thousands of troops. He stood on the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, pointed at the high platform where the masked man and the boss were, and ordered the Tyrannosaurus Rex, "Attack there." Tap tap. Then the Tyrannosaurus Rex walked towards the high platform where the masked man and the boss were with heavy steps. "Huh, do you think this is enough?" The boss sneered at Doraemon, Nobita and others with disdain. Then the platform where the boss and the masked man were located rose upwards like an elevator. "No, they are going to escape," Fat Tiger said anxiously, mainly because he was afraid that they would get more advanced weapons to deal with them after they got out of here. The Tyrannosaurus Rex under everyone's feet also increased its speed after seeing its prey was about to escape. After quickly walking to the bottom of the elevator where the boss and the masked man were sitting, it opened its bloody mouth and bit forward. Boom. With a flash of electric sparks, the circuit of the elevator where the masked man and the boss were sitting was successfully destroyed by the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Ah! With a scream, the boss and the masked man fell from above with the elevator. Bang! A lot of dust was splashed after the elevator fell. Under Doraemon's command, The Tyrannosaurus Rex turned around and rushed towards the direction where the boss fell. As for the masked man, he disappeared after he fell. Looking at this situation, the boss angrily pressed a switch on the wall, and then the wall split in the middle, and a Spinosaurus walked out of it. Nobita, who was standing on the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, saw the Spinosaurus appear behind his boss. He did not show any surprise, because he had known that his boss had this dinosaur. At the same time, Nobita's mind automatically showed the information of Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus, dinosaur, with a body length of 11 to 15 meters and a weight of 4 to 10 tons, is a famous giant carnivorous theropod dinosaur that lived from about 112 million to 93 million years ago in the late Cretaceous period. Spinosaurus can compete with Tyrannosaurus Rex. If the two really fight, it is hard to say who will win. Nobita, Shizuka and others saw another dinosaur appear. Although they were a little surprised, in their opinion, Tyrannosaurus Rex, as the overlord of the dinosaur era, must be able to defeat the unknown dinosaur in front of them. But Doraemon's face was a little solemn. He certainly knew what the dinosaur that appeared in front of the Tyrannosaurus Rex and was confronting the Tyrannosaurus Rex was. The Spinosaurus in front of the boss rushed towards the Tyrannosaurus Rex first, and the two dinosaurs collided soon. The vibration from the Tyrannosaurus almost threw Nobi Daichi and the others away, and at the same time, a strong sense of discomfort came to Nobi Daichi and the others. Nobi Daichi, Nobita and the others tightly grasped the Tyrannosaurus to prevent themselves from being thrown off. Only then did they regret why they did not get down from the Tyrannosaurus. Chapter 83 Base Destruction. After the collision, the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Spinosaurus began to bite each other. Although Nobi Daichi and others held the Tyrannosaurus Rex tightly, they were still thrown down by the Tyrannosaurus Rex fighting with the Spinosaurus. Fortunately, the Tyrannosaurus Rex may have intentionally or unintentionally not used much force when Nobi Daichi and others were thrown down. Therefore, although Nobi Daichi and others fell off the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, they were not seriously injured. Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others got up from the ground one after another and looked at the Tyrannosaurus Rex fighting with the Spinosaurus. At this time, the battle between the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Spinosaurus was in a hot stage. After colliding again, the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Spinosaurus separated. Roar. The Tyrannosaurus Rex roared and rushed towards the Spinosaurus again. The Spinosaurus also howled and rushed towards the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Bang. This time the Spinosaurus was directly knocked to the ground by the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Nobi Daichi was a little confused. Why did this Spinosaurus seem to be weaker than the Tyrannosaurus Rex? Could it be because of the boss's cruel treatment of Spinosaurus? However, these were not what he should think about now. After a little thought, he took his thoughts back. Nobi Daichi looked up and found that the battle between Tyrannosaurus and Spinosaurus was coming to an end. Spinosaurus fell to the ground with wounds. The boss looked at the Spinosaurus like this and was furious. He didn't know when a whip appeared in his hand, and then he whipped the Spinosaurus lying on the ground. The Spinosaurus kept wailing, but couldn't stand up. The boss didn't care about it. He kept whipping the Spinosaurus, trying to make it stand up and continue fighting. Although the Tyrannosaurus Rex didn't suffer any serious injuries, it was so tired of defeating the Spinosaurus that it stood there and gasped. Seeing that Spinosaurus really couldn't stand up and fight again, the boss also had the heart to retreat. That man is going to escape. Seeing the boss gradually retreating, Sunya hurriedly shouted to everyone when he saw this scene. Nobita, Doraemon and others turned their heads after hearing Sunya shouting, and it was just as Sunya said. Just now, they were only concerned about the battle between the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Spinosaurus, and almost forgot about the boss. Humph, do you think this is the end? After the boss finished speaking, he pressed a switch on the wall again, and the wall of the circular venue suddenly revealed holes, and streams of water flowed out. Ha ha ha, the boss laughed, and then the wall behind him suddenly cracked into a space the size of a door. The laughing boss was about to enter the door in front of everyone. Nobita, Doraemon and others were anxious, but had no good solution. Roar. At this critical moment, the Tyrannosaurus Rex took action and rushed directly to where the boss was. Bang. The Tyrannosaurus Rex hit the wall directly, and it seemed to have broken something. The passage behind the boss was directly closed again. The boss finally felt a little panicked when he saw this scene. Just as Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others were fighting with the boss and the masked man in a cave where various dinosaurs were imprisoned, an adult Triceratops first emerged from a cage and attacked the staff next to it. At the same time, other iron cages that imprisoned dinosaurs were also destroyed by the dinosaurs in the cages, and then one after another dinosaurs broke free from the iron cages. The staff responsible for imprisoning the dinosaurs were anxious when they saw this situation, but they were attacked by the dinosaurs that broke free from the iron cages before they could take out their weapons. Finally, one of the staff took out his weapon and shot at one of the dinosaurs. Maybe because the situation was urgent and he was a little anxious, he actually shot off the right direction and hit a spaceship. Looking at the shot that hit the vital point of the spaceship, the face of the staff member who was shot turned extremely pale. This is terrible. With a loud bang, the spaceship that was shot by the staff exploded directly. There were several other spaceships next to the exploded spaceship, so a series of chain explosions occurred. Boom. 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 Under the influence of the exploding spaceship, the surrounding walls were directly blown open. On the circular field, Nobita, Doraemon and others watched the surrounding walls suddenly crack. A stream of water that was more turbulent than the water flowing out of the cave before flowed into this space. They were all stunned, not knowing what was going on. The boss was also stunned. He just pressed the switch to release the water just to confuse him so that he could escape. As for now, what was going on? It seemed that this base could not escape the fate of being destroyed. Nobi Daichi sighed secretly. He was not sorry for the destruction of this base, but just sighed. Then he walked towards Nobita, Doraemon and others who had gathered together. The cracks on the wall were very small at first, but as the water flowed, the cracks became larger and larger, and one stone after another fell from the wall. One of the boulders smashed towards the boss. When the boss thought he was finished and closed his eyes, a huge figure suddenly appeared next to the boss and blocked the boss with his body. Bang! The boulder fell, but did not hit the boss. The boss opened his tightly closed eyes, and then he saw the Spinosaurus crying and supporting himself in front of him. He felt mixed emotions, and felt very uncomfortable for an unknown reason. He was so cruel to it, how could it still? Seeing the water on the circular field getting deeper and deeper, Doraemon called Nobi Daichi and others to stand on the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Just when Nobita, Doraemon and others were thinking about how to escape from here, time balls emitting green light suddenly appeared above everyone. Then the time ball aimed the green light at Nobi Daichi and others standing on the head of the Tyrannosaurus. This is a time ball, which has the ability to teleport instantly. They can take us away from here. After seeing the time ball suddenly appear above his group, Doraemon excitedly explained to everyone. When Doraemon explained the function of the time ball to everyone, the time ball above them shone green light on Nobi Daichi and others standing on the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Nobita, Shizuka and others were very happy, but they were not happy for a few seconds. The next moment, several eyeball-shaped shells flew into the time ball group and exploded directly. As the sound of the explosion came into the ears of Nobita, Doraemon and others, Doraemon looked up and exclaimed, "The time ball was destroyed? Ha ha ha, little ghosts, you just wait to die here." Then everyone heard the voice of the masked man coming from a place in this space. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and found that the eyeball-shaped shells were actually fired by the masked man, because the masked man still had a launcher in his hand. At this time, the masked man was sitting on the time machine. After driving the time machine to fly above Nobi Daichi and others, the masked man taunted, "I can travel through time and space anytime and anywhere. I didn't lose this time." Then a time tunnel suddenly appeared above the masked man, and the clock in the time tunnel kept rotating, but the time tunnel that appeared above the masked man was not colorful but black and white. Chapter 84 successfully escaped. Then the masked man drove the time machine up to the space-time tunnel above. Nobita, Doraemon and others watched this scene. Although they were angry about the masked man detonating the time ball, they had no way to stop the masked man from entering the time tunnel and escaping from here. Seeing that the masked man was about to enter the time tunnel and escape from here in the time machine, the space-time tunnel above the masked man suddenly closed. and the wall above the space where Nobi Daichi and others were located suddenly collapsed downwards, and more water flowed in at the same time. Because the masked man was riding the time machine above, there was no doubt that the masked man was directly hit by the rocks falling from above and fell down, and the idea of escaping from here was completely lost. Looking at the ground, that was already several meters deep with water, and the water on the ground was rising at an extremely exaggerated speed, Doraemon hurriedly asked everyone to stand on the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was not that they did not want to escape from here, but the exit had been blocked by the water flow, and they could not get out unless they swam out of the water. But this way, everyone might be separated again, and the turbulent water flow, plus they didn't know what the situation would be like outside after swimming out of the exit, whether they would encounter danger, so everyone temporarily gathered together and did nothing. However, this was not a long-term solution. Looking at the anxious expressions on the faces of Nobita, Shizuka and others, Doraemon finally said, "Nobita, Daichi, you get into my 4-dimensional pocket, and then let me take you out." Faced with this dangerous situation, Nobita, Shizuka and others had no objections and directly agreed to Doraemon's method, and then everyone got into Doraemon's 4-dimensional pocket. After Nobita and others got into Doraemon's pocket, Doraemon asked the dinosaurs who were still staying here to get into the 4-dimensional pocket as well. At this time, the space where Nobita, Daichi and others were located was completely filled with water flow, and Pisuke was still faster in the water. Therefore, Doraemon grabbed Pisuke, who was shrunk by the shrinking lamp, with both hands, and then Pisuke took Doraemon to swim outside. Hoo-ha-ha. Doraemon couldn't hear the sound of the water in the water, but he could feel the direction of the water. Pisuke led Doraemon to swim quickly towards the water flow, and soon swam to an iron railing. Pisuke's body was small, so he swam directly out of the gap in the railing, but Doraemon was stuck in the gap of the railing. Pisuke flapped his limbs hard in front, but still couldn't get Doraemon out of the obstruction of the railing. At this time, Nobita suddenly got out of Doraemon's 4-dimensional pocket, and looked at Doraemon, who was stuck. After Nobita swam outside the railing, he held Doraemon's head, and pulled it out of the railing. After pulling it a few times, Doraemon got out from the other side of the railing. Then Nobita held Doraemon's head, and Doraemon pulled Pisuke with both hands. The two of them and the dragon swam towards a bright light, which was actually the water surface. This is a canyon. In the middle of the canyon is a river, and in the middle of the river is a small hill several tens of meters high. The ground below is large, and the hill starts to get smaller from the bottom to the top, but even at the so-called peak, the peak is not sharp. Suddenly, with a loud noise, the hill began to collapse from top to bottom. But perhaps because the water flow entered the hill did not collapse quickly. Soon after the hill began to collapse, streams of water began to flow out of the hill, but they were all trickles. At this moment, a very large stream of water erupted from the hill. Nobita, Doraemon and Pisuke quickly followed the water flow and left the base, but as soon as they left the base, they were washed high into the sky by the water flow. Seeing this scene, Nobita and Doraemon couldn't help screaming. Seeing that Nobita and Doraemon were about to fall down. Boom. A large stream of water suddenly spurted out from Doraemon's 4-dimensional pocket, and the impact of the water flow directly rushed Nobita, Doraemon and Pisuke into the sky. Not only the river flowed out of Doraemon's 4-dimensional pocket, but also the dinosaurs that had previously entered Doraemon's 4-dimensional pocket. Finally, the water in Doraemon's 4-dimensional pocket ran out, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex finally came out of the 4-dimensional pocket. Nobi Daichi, Shizuka and others happened to fall on the Tyrannosaurus Rex when they were rushed out of the 4-dimensional pocket. Nobita, Doraemon, and Pisuke also fell on the Tyrannosaurus Rex, while the Tyrannosaurus Rex stood on a stone on the completely collapsed hill. Roar. The Tyrannosaurus Rex roared excitedly, and at the same time, the dinosaurs that fell on other stones also shouted excitedly. Nobita, Doraemon and others who were sitting on the Tyrannosaurus Rex were also very happy. Fat Tiger was even more excited and hugged Sunia and said, "We succeeded." Fortunately, the water here was not deep, so Doraemon directly asked the Tyrannosaurus Rex to take them away. Before Nobita, Doraemon and others left here, a series of time and space patrol ships suddenly appeared in this place where dragons gathered. Then a lot of time and space patrol police came down from the time and space patrol ships. These time and space patrol police walked towards the dinosaur hunters, who would be taken back to the future for investigation. While searching these dinosaur hunters, some time and space patrol police also took out special instruments to treat the injured dinosaurs. Looking at Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others who were sitting on the Tyrannosaurus Rex and had walked away, the captain, who was wearing a police uniform and sunglasses, said to himself, "I see." At this time, a time-space patrol police walked to the captain's side and said respectfully, "Captain, we searched for several times, but still couldn't find the group of children." Children? No need to look for them, they have gone far away. On a piece of green grass, Nobi Daichi and others were walking side by side. There are obviously time-space patrol police, why do we have to walk by ourselves? Fat Tiger said half jokingly, and looked at Sunia with a mischievous look. That's right, we can obviously ask the time-space patrol police to take us home. Shizuka also echoed Fat Tiger on the side. My props were also washed away by the water. Doraemon pulled up the completely empty 4-dimensional pocket and said, although the props in the 4-dimensional pocket were all gone, Doraemon's face was not depressed at all, but full of smiles. Well, I think it's better to rely on my own strength to send Pizu. After all, he is our partner. Ziofu looked at everyone and said carefully, "Hahaha, Ziofu, you are really my good brother." After hearing Ziofu's words, Fat Tiger excitedly hooked Ziofu with his right hand. Chapter 85 Finale. Fat Tiger hooked Sunia's neck. Fat Tiger was happy, but Sunia almost couldn't breathe because of Fat Tiger's action. Fat Tiger, let go, I can't breathe. Sunia's face flushed. Ah, sorry. After hearing Sunia's words, Fat Tiger quickly loosened his right hand that was hooked around Sunia's neck. Others also found this scene a little funny. They walked like this and soon reached the shore. Looking at the vast ocean in the distance, Doraemon said, "There is no way ahead. What should I do now?" Nobita was also a little worried when he saw this scene. While Nobita was thinking about what to do, Pizu, who was lying on his head, patted his head. Seeing Nobita looking up at himself, Pizu pointed at himself with his hand. "That's right." Nobita shouted in surprise. Then he turned to Nobi, Daichi, Doraemon and others and said, "We can sit on Pizu and let Pizu take us over." Everyone had no choice but to do this. Then Nobita put Pizu into the sea water in front of him, and when the shrinking light disappeared, Pizu returned to its original size. "Wow, Pizu can take us with him without any problem," Sunia said happily, while sitting on Pizu's back. "Yeah, I didn't expect Pizu to have grown so big." Nobi Daichi suddenly realized that so much time had passed in a flash. Everyone just sat quietly on Pizu's back, watching the fish in the water, waiting for Pizu to take them to their destination. At this time, a number of time and space patrol police ships appeared beside everyone. Salute. The captain and the rows of time and space patrol police standing on the deck saluted Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others below. Nobita, Doraemon and others also waved to them excitedly. Then the time and space patrol police ships turned into streams of light and disappeared into the sky. After an unknown amount of time, in the area in front of Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others, golden rays of sunlight fell from the sky and fell through the gaps between the clouds. A dozen meters away from them was a beach, and in the middle of the beach was a square black hole. That's the entrance to the time machine. Doraemon pointed at the square black hole and said excitedly, "That's the drawer of my desk. This is Japan. We can go back." "Oh yeah." Nobita, Sunia, Shizuka, and Fat Tiger also spoke excitedly. "If nothing goes wrong, that's our destination." Nobi Daichi said affirmatively. The reason he said that was because Doraemon's tone was a little hesitant when he spoke just now. Then Pizu led everyone to swim towards the beach. Soon Pizu swam to the edge of the beach, and then everyone jumped off Pizu's back one after another. When he ran to the center of the beach and looked at the square black hole, Doraemon confirmed it several times and said excitedly, "That's right, this is where the desk in Nobita's room is." Doraemon took out the time machine from his 4-dimensional pocket, placed the time machine above the black hole, and then sat on the time machine to start debugging. Is this Japan 100 million years ago? Looking at the ocean in the distance beyond the beach, Nobita exclaimed. Pipizu swayed his body and walked to Nobita's side, rubbing Nobita affectionately with his head, and Nobita also reached out to comfort Pizu. At this time, a few dozen meters away from the beach, a splash of water rose, and then 6 or 7 double leaf-necked dragons of the same species as Pizu emerged from the water. After the 6 or 7 double leaf-necked dragons emerged from the water, they greeted each other cordially, and one of the double leaf-necked dragons looked at the place where Nobita and Pizu were. When they saw Pizu, they called out to him from a distance. The other double-necked dragons also called out to him when they saw Pizu. "Pi, are they calling Pizu?" Nobita thought blankly as he watched the scene. He didn't know why he couldn't stop crying. He rubbed his face hard to prevent himself from crying, and after turning his face into a smiley face, Nobita smiled and said to Pizu, "Pizu, they are your partners in the future life. Go find them." Pizu didn't respond to Nobita's words. He looked at the familiar double-necked dragon in the distance, with joy and confusion in his eyes. Pa. Pizu stepped into the water and slowly crawled towards the double-necked dragons in the distance. Nobita followed Pizu quietly, with an unknown expression on his face. Nobi Daichi, who was standing on the beach, watched the scene with mixed feelings in his heart. Nobita and Pizu walked towards the Dilophosaurus together. Looking at Pizu who was walking in front of him, Nobita said slowly, "Pizu, you will see more things, and know more things in the future. And you will grow bigger and bigger." Having said that, Nobita suddenly stopped. Looking at Pizu who was being intimate with the Diplodocus in the group of Diplodocus, he first whispered, "Me too. I will too." Until the end, he suddenly shouted to Pizu, "I will do my best too." After that, he sobbed and ran towards the beach where Nobi Daichi and others were. Pipizu, who was being intimate with the Diplodocus, was stunned when he saw this scene, and then he crawled towards Nobita anxiously. Seeing Nobita running farther and farther, Pizu also increased his speed, and at the same time, a string of tears fell from Pizu's eyes. Nobita ran quickly in the water, and after falling several times, he quickly climbed out of the water. Looking at Pizu who was following behind him, Nobita, who fell in the water, turned around, raised a splash of water with his hand, and cried to Pizu, "Don't follow me." And then he quickly ran towards the beach where Nobita, Doraemon and others were, and shouted to Doraemon while running, "Hurry up and open the time machine." At this time, Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia, who were sitting in the time machine, had already burst into tears watching this scene. Woo woo patter. Looking at the tears falling on his palms, Nobita turned around and slowly wiped them away. Nobita quickly ran from the water to the beach, and then sat on the time machine. Woo woo. Nobita turned his back to Pasuke. Tears couldn't stop flowing down, and at the same time shouted to Doraemon, "Hurry up." Woo woo. Doraemon tried hard to hold back his tears, and pulled the joystick downwards. A blue light suddenly came from the bottom of the time machine, piercing through the sky and the earth, and then the time machine slowly rose in the blue beam of light. Pipizu finally arrived under the time machine with great effort, and looked at the people who had already flown high into the sky, sobbing. When the time machine rose to a certain height in the sky, it stopped rising. At this time, the time machine was covered by a ball of golden red light. "Pizu, take care." Shizuka shouted to Pizu below. "Goodbye, Pizu." Fat Tiger and Sunia also said. Nobita, who had barely calmed down, turned around and forced a smile, and said to Pizu below, "We will meet again. Pizu, take care. Hold on tight, I'm going to start." Doraemon didn't bother to wipe the tears from his eyes. He lifted the joystick upwards with both hands, and the time machine suddenly turned into a golden red stream of light, and disappeared into the sky. Skin, don't ask me why what I wrote is almost the same as the original, because I don't know how to change it, how to give more roles to the protagonists. The Doraemon world itself has multiple protagonists. Other worlds are easy to deal with, but the Doraemon world is also difficult for me. Please be detailed when making suggestions in this regard. Chapter 86, The Chat Group and New Missions. Japan, Tokyo, at Tsukimide, Nerima District, Nobi House. As the desk drawer was opened, Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others came out of the drawer one after another. When they came back, the sunset was approaching dusk, and the afterglow of the sunset sprinkled on the desk. Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon went downstairs to see off Shizuka, Sunia and Fat Tiger, and returned to the second floor room again. Nobita walked to the desk with an expressionless face, then sat on the chair, and after sitting silently for a while, he suddenly lay on the table. Nobi Daichi and Doraemon saw this scene, and hurried over to take a look, and found that Nobita had fallen asleep, and his nose was still bubbling. Nobi Daichi and Doraemon looked at each other and smiled helplessly. Looking at Nobita who was sleeping soundly, Nobi Daichi also felt a sense of fatigue, and then he spread the quilt on the tatami, and went into sleep. When Nobi Daichi woke up, it was already night, and Nobita was still sleeping on the desk. Just then, Nobita Tamako's shout came from downstairs. Nobi Daichi got up from the bed, put on his clothes, and woke Nobita up. Then the two went downstairs to eat together. After dinner, Nobi Daichi quickly cleaned up, and got back into bed to sleep. This kind of sleep time without worrying about danger would not have existed in the dinosaur era. Nothing happened that night. The next day was class time, so Nobi Daichi woke up early, and woke up Nobita. Ding, you can clock in today. Do you want to clock in? Card in. Card in successfully. Open the third function of the system, the chat group of all heavens. Hearing the words of the system, Nobi Daichi's mind was shocked. Then a group chat panel appeared in front of Nobi Daichi. Group name, All Heavens Chat Group. Group owner, Nobi Daichi. Group members, currently only the host. Nobi Daichi was very happy to hear the system's words, but when he saw that he was the only one in the group chat, his heart sank. System, what's going on? The system remained silent. Nobi Daichi asked again without giving up. System, what's going on? The system remained silent. Well, Nobi Daichi gave up. Anyway, he would know sooner or later, and there was no time to lose. While thinking about these, Nobi Daichi was busy packing, eating, and going to school. During a break, Dekisuji, Shizuka, Fat Tiger, and Sunia gathered together to discuss a topic. Nobi Daichi went to the bathroom as soon as the class was over. In summer, you can find many constellations by searching along the Milky Way. Wow, Shizuka and others standing next to Dekisuji exclaimed. What are you talking about? Nobita walked to Dekisuji and asked Dekisuji curiously. We are talking about constellations. Dekisuji replied. Yes, Izukisuji is really knowledgeable. Shizuka couldn't help but praise. Sunia and Fat Tiger standing by also nodded hurriedly. What? I'm very familiar with this. After all, my mother often teaches me to do it. Nobita climbed onto Izukisuji's desk with excitement, and then continued. First, we have to sit up straight, and then stick our big toes together. The others were stunned at first, and then laughed. That, Nobita, we are talking about constellations, not sitting upright. Ah. Nobita suddenly felt that the sky had fallen. After Nobita heard Shizuka's explanation, he looked at the people who were laughing, and his face suddenly turned red. At this time, he wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Just at this time, Nobita Daichi walked in from the door of the classroom. Nobita hurriedly found an excuse and ran towards Nobita Daichi. Seeing Nobita with a red face and indignation, Nobita Daichi asked curiously, "Brother, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so bad?" Then Nobita briefly told Nobita what happened just now. As soon as Nobita said that, Nobita Daichi immediately recalled the plot of a certain extra story. Daichi, tell me if they are to bullying. Come with me and help me vent my anger. Nobita Daichi spread his hands, indicating that he had no other way. No, this matter can't be let go like this. Go back to Doraemon, he must have a way. Nobita said angrily, and returned to his seat. At night, Nobita's house, the bedroom on the second floor. Nobita and Doraemon sat opposite each other, while Nobita Daichi sat at the desk reading a book. Nobita kept crying to Doraemon. Didn't I just hear the constellation is sitting? They laughed at me, and laughed at me for not knowing the story of the cowherd and the weaver girl. Nobita danced and drew. Nobita, they did go a little too far, but the story of the cowherd and the weaver girl is so famous, you really don't know it? This? Nobita touched his head embarrassedly. Ah. Looking at this scene, Doraemon sighed helplessly. Then let me tell you about it. Legend has it that there is a very beautiful woman who is very good at weaving beside the Milky Way in the sky. Her name is Weaver Girl. Weaver Girl's father saw that Weaver Girl was still unmarried at such an old age and felt very sorry for her, so he betrothed her to the hard-working and capable cowherd on the other side of the Milky Way. Looking at Nobita, who was listening to his story with his eyes wide open, Doraemon felt a sense of pride in his heart, but it was a pity that Daisy didn't come to listen to his story of the cowherd and the Weaver Girl. Originally, the story should have ended perfectly, but then the cowherd and the Weaver Girl were busy playing. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Nobi Daichi finally couldn't help laughing. Although he had known that Doraemon would tell this story for a long time, when he really heard it, Nobi Daichi couldn't help laughing. Hey, Daichi, what are you laughing at? Doraemon turned his head and looked at Nobi Daichi in confusion. Ah, nothing to laugh at, nothing to laugh at. Nobi Daichi said as he held his stomach that hurt from laughing and opened the door and walked out. How strange. These three words appeared in Doraemon and Nobita's minds at the same time. Okay, I'll continue to tell the story of the cowherd and the Weaver Girl. The cowherd and the Weaver Girl enjoyed playing every day and neglected herding cattle and weaving. The Weaver Girl's father drove the Weaver Girl back to the other side of the Milky Way and stipulated that they could only meet once a year, and the day they met was named Nobita. Opening the door and walking out, Nobi Daichi held the wall for a long time before he recovered. Just as Nobi Daichi wanted to push the door open and enter the bedroom, the system's voice suddenly came. Ding, release a permanent task. Task name, God Nobita. Chapter 87, Constellation Legend Simulator. Ding, permanent mission released. Mission name, God Nobita. Mission description. Due to the host's intrusion into this world, the trajectory of this world has changed. According to the original trajectory, Nobita will not encounter any fatal danger before becoming God Nobita, but now there are some errors. Mission goal. Make sure Nobita lives to the age of 15. When Nobita is 15, the trajectory of this world will return to normal. This mission. Seeing the mission goal, Nobi Daichi's face became solemn. When the system told him to open the function of shuttling through the heavens and all the worlds, he knew that the Doraemon world was just one of the worlds, but he never expected that his arrival would affect the trajectory of this world. Many thoughts appeared in Nobi Daichi's mind, and he thought a lot, but in reality, only a few seconds passed. Pushing open the door, Nobi Daichi happened to see Nobita coming out of the closet holding a quilt, so Nobi Daichi also went up and took out his own quilt from the closet. After laying out the quilt on the tatami, Nobita and Nobita Daichi were ready to go to bed when Doraemon, who had already crawled into the closet, climbed down from the closet again. Nobita, if you want to learn about the stars and constellations, this Constellation Legend Simulator is a good prop. Doraemon took out a prop from his 4-dimensional pocket. Daichi, I wonder if you are interested? Doraemon turned his head and said to Nobita Daichi, I want to see it too. Nobita Daichi was originally sitting on the tatami. After hearing what Doraemon said, he stood up from the tatami and walked to Nobita and Doraemon. Then Nobita Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon squeezed together by the window. The sky tonight is still good. There is no dark cloud in the sky, and the crescent moon is quietly hanging in the sky. The brilliant Milky Way was reflected in the eyes of the three people. Doraemon pointed at the Milky Way in the sky and said to Nobita, Nobita, do you know which one is Vega and Alta? After hearing Doraemon's question, Nobita stared at the Milky Way in the sky with wide eyes. After a moment, Nobita turned his head and made a cross shape with his hands in front of his chest and said to Doraemon embarrassedly, I have no idea at all. Then Daichi, do you know? Nobita shook his head, indicating that he didn't know either. He was not very interested in this aspect and didn't study it much in normal times. Then the role of the Constellation Legend Simulator is reflected at this time. Doraemon said while operating the Constellation Legend Simulator, and then Nobita and Nobita saw a triangle appear on the Milky Way in the night sky. Wow, a triangle appeared on the Milky Way. Nobita looked at the triangle on the Milky Way and said in surprise, this is called the Summer Triangle. Doraemon explained to Nobita and Nobita, the brightest star is Vega, and the one opposite Vega is Alta, and the star in the Milky Way is Deneb. This triangle is the most obvious sign for finding constellations, and it is located in the tail feathers of Cygnus. Doraemon manipulated the Constellation Legend simulator again, and then the complete Cygnus constellation connected by stars in the Milky Way appeared in front of Nobi Daichi and Nobita. Wow, it's really good, Nobita said excitedly to Doraemon. These two people are the cowherd and weaver girl in the Tanabata story I just told you, Nobita. Then the images of the cowherd and weaver girl connected by stars appeared on the left and right sides of the Milky Way in the sky. If you want to learn more about these constellations, there is a better way. Doraemon smiled and pressed a blue button on the Constellation Legends simulator. With a bang, layers of smoke suddenly appeared in the room on the second floor, where Nobi Daichi and Nobita were. After the smoke dissipated, a man and a woman appeared in front of the three people. Ah, what is this? Nobita looked at the man and woman in front of him with wide eyes. Mr. Cowherd. Princess Weaver. Then, in the astonishment of Nobita and Doraemon, the cowherd and weaver standing in front of the three people hugged each other with red faces. Ah, Nobita, Dazzy, this is not what you should see now. Turn around. Looking at this scene in front of him, Doraemon hurriedly covered Nobita's eyes and asked him to turn around. As for Dazzy, Doraemon didn't care, because Nobita Dazzy turned around consciously when he finished speaking. Looking at the cowherd and weaver who were being affectionate, Doraemon felt helpless. He originally wanted Nobita and Dazzy to ask the two more questions, but he didn't expect that there was no chance at all. Doraemon covered Nobita's eyes with one hand and pressed the red button on the Constellation Legend simulator with the other hand. Then the cowherd and weaver, who were hugging each other and being affectionate, disappeared in Nobita and Nobita's room with a look of astonishment. Doraemon wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said to Nobita and Nobita who turned around, Nobita, Nobita, it's okay. Then Doraemon put down the hand that was covering Nobita's eyes, and Nobita also turned around. Nobita picked up the Constellation Legend simulator on the tatami and said excitedly, this prop is really good. I have decided that I will hold a stargazing meeting tomorrow and invite Shizuka, Izuka Tsuji and others to participate. Hahaha. Looking at Nobita's excitement and listening to Nobita's ideas, Doraemon did not stop Nobita. In this way, the three people who had played around went to bed. I don't know how long they slept, but Nobita was suddenly awakened by Doraemon's call. Nobita opened his eyes and found that Nobita had gotten up and put on his clothes. Dazzy, the moonlight tonight is very good, very suitable for using the Constellation Legends simulator. Tomorrow may not be such a good weather. That's why I woke you up. You don't mind, do you? Nobi Daichi shook his head, indicating that he didn't mind. But now everyone is asleep, and we can't hold a stargazing meeting. Although Nobi Daichi knew about the anime, he still had to ask. Just use this dream wind chime. Doraemon took out a wind chime from his 4-dimensional pocket. Dream wind chime. It is a prop that can summon sleeping children. It is only effective for young children. Those who are summoned will be in a sleepwalking state. They cannot be woken up, and they will not completely obey the orders of the summoner. Oh. Nobi Daichi said oh to indicate that he understood, and then got out of the bed, put on clothes and packed up. Chapter 88 Rushing to the back hill of the school. Looking at Nobi Daichi and Nobita who were standing in front of him, and had packed up, Doraemon raised his little hand and said, let's go. Then Doraemon took out 3 bamboo dragonflies from his 4-dimensional pocket and handed 2 of them to Nobi Daichi and Nobita respectively. Nobi Daichi put the bamboo dragonfly on his head and followed Doraemon, while Nobita flew side by side with him. Led by Doraemon, the 3 of them soon arrived outside the second floor window of Shizuka's house. Shizuka, get up quickly, let's go to the back mountain of the school tonight to see the stars and constellations together. Doraemon shook the dream wind chime in his hand towards the direction of the second floor window. Although the window of Shizuka's room was closed and the curtains were drawn, this could not prevent the sound of the dream wind chime from entering. Under the effect of the dream wind chime, Shizuka, who was originally sleeping quietly in bed, suddenly lifted the quilt and sat up from the bed. Then he put on his clothes and shoes and went downstairs, opened the door, and walked towards Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon. Okay, let's go call Dekisuji, Fat Tiger, and Sunia now. Doraemon looked at Shizuka who was still sleeping, and said to Nobi Daichi and Nobita next to him. Then Doraemon, Nobi Daichi, and Nobita slowed down their flying speed, so that Shizuka could keep up with them. After some twists and turns, Nobi Daichi, Doraemon and Nobita finally gathered Dekisuji, Shizuka and others. Looking at the people who were falling down weakly and still sleeping, Doraemon, Nobi Daichi and Nobita flew down from the sky. After Nobi Daichi and Nobita landed on the ground, they returned the bamboo dragonflies to Doraemon, and Doraemon put all the bamboo dragonflies into the 4-dimensional pocket. Looking at Shizuka, Dekisuji and others standing scattered around, Doraemon shook the dream wind chime in his hand to make them stand in a row. Then he walked in front of the sleeping people and prepared to take them to the back mountain of the school. Doraemon suddenly thought of something, turned around and said to Nobi Daichi and Nobita, "Nobita, Daichi, you follow behind to prevent anyone from falling behind." After saying this, Doraemon stood in front of Shizuka, Dekisuji and others with all his heart, and took them to the back mountain of the school. Nobi Daichi and Nobita followed the sleeping Shizuka, Dekisuji and others at the end. Then Nobi Daichi and his group walked towards the back mountain of the school. As expected, there was an accident on the way. Fat Tiger was walking at the back. He was walking well, but suddenly turned around and walked towards the wall on the left side of the alley. Nobita saw this scene and hurried over to grab Fat Tiger, but how could Nobita hold Fat Tiger with his strength? Therefore, Nobita not only failed to hold Fat Tiger, but almost fell down because of trying to hold Fat Tiger. After seeing this, Nobi Daichi walked quickly behind Fat Tiger and watched Fat Tiger, who kept walking even when he reached the wall. Nobi Daichi stretched out his hand and wanted to grab Fat Tiger and ask him to change his direction. But Nobi Daichi stretched out his hand halfway and then stretched it back. It turned out that at the moment when he stretched out his hand just now, Nobi Daichi remembered that his current physique was no different from that of an ordinary child. Therefore, looking at Nobita who was looking at him expectantly, Nobita Daichi turned his head and said to Nobita with an embarrassed face, "Sorry, brother, I can't pull him back either." Hearing Nobita Daichi's answer, Nobita was obviously surprised. Before, when Nobita Daichi fought with Fat Tiger at the baseball field, he easily subdued Fat Tiger. Why can't he pull Fat Tiger back now? Could it be that Nobita Daichi is just a little better at fighting, but his strength is not as great as he thought? But before Nobita had time to think more, he was pulled back from his thoughts by the voice of Doraemon who suddenly appeared. "Nobita, Daichi, what are you doing? Why did you stop here?" Doraemon hurriedly walked up to Nobita and Daichi and asked. Then Nobita told him about Fat Tiger. So that's it. It seems to be a bit difficult. Looking at Fat Tiger who was still walking towards the wall, Doraemon said helplessly. In fact, when he came over and saw Fat Tiger's condition, Doraemon knew that there might be something wrong with Fat Tiger. The reason why he asked Nobita and Daichi just now was just to confirm with them. "I'll try the dream wind chime first. If it doesn't work, I'll think of other ways," Doraemon said and shook the dream wind chime in his hand. Ring Fat Tiger. Turn right and walk forward." When Doraemon finished speaking, Nobita looked at Fat Tiger nervously. He really didn't want his stargazing meeting plan to fail. Nobi Daichi stood by and watched Doraemon shaking the dream wind chime and Fat Tiger who kept walking. He was thinking about what to do if he failed. He glanced up at the dazzling starry sky. Today's scene is really suitable for stargazing. He didn't want to miss it if he could. Just when Doraemon and Nobita looked at Fat Tiger with nervous faces, Fat Tiger finally stopped walking towards the wall, but turned right and walked forward. Seeing this scene, Doraemon and Nobita breathed a sigh of relief. Nobi Daichi also breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to think about other ways if he didn't have to think about it. In this way, Doraemon returned to the front of the crowd and led everyone to the back mountain of the school. Nobi Daichi and Nobita returned to the back of the crowd to see if there would be anyone who fell behind. After the previous twists and turns of Fat Tiger, Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others did not encounter any accidents, and everyone soon arrived at the back mountain of the school. Doraemon led everyone to a relatively wide area and stopped. "We have arrived at the destination. Look at the intoxicating starry sky. You must be very happy." Nobita excitedly pointed at the Milky Way in the sky and said to Shizuka, Dekisuji and others who were sleeping soundly. Doraemon held up the wind chime and stretched out his hands excitedly, expressing his agreement with what Nobita said. The other sleeping Dekisuji, Shizuka, Sunia and Fat Tiger also stretched out their hands like Doraemon, with excited expressions on their faces. Looking at this scene, Nobita said to Doraemon angrily, "Doraemon, you know, this is not what I want." Sorry. Doraemon put the dream wind chime in his hand back into the 4-dimensional pocket with an embarrassed look. Then he took out a horn that was only the size of a few thumbs from the 4-dimensional pocket. "Then let's wake them up." Doraemon rang the small horn in his hand. But a sound that almost deafened Nobi, Daichi and Nobita came from the small speaker in Doraemon's hand. Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia were immediately awakened. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Hercules. After seeing Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia wake up, Nobita apologized and told them his explanation. After hearing Nobita's explanation, Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia didn't know if they had other thoughts in their hearts, but they said it didn't matter anyway. Wow, what a beautiful starry sky. Shizuka looked up at the Milky Way in the night sky and exclaimed. Yes. Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia also nodded hurriedly. Since the purpose of our coming here is to observe the stars, let's use my super advanced astronomical telescope, Sunia said to everyone, while taking out an astronomical telescope from somewhere. No need, this time I will explain the knowledge about constellations to you. Nobita stood in front of Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia, holding the Constellation Legend simulator in his hand, and smiled at them. As he said that, Nobita raised the Constellation Legend simulator in his hand, and then the Cygnus constellation formed by the stars in the sky appeared on the Milky Way. Wow, it's so magical. Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia all screamed in curiosity when they saw this scene. Nobi Daichi stood at the edge between Nobita, Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia, and stood together with Doraemon, looking at Nobita, Shizuka and others. But why do I feel it's a little strange? Sunia raised his hand and pointed at the Cygnus constellation that appeared in the sky and suddenly said to Shizuka, Dekisuji and others standing next to him. It turned out that the pattern of Cygnus constellation that appeared in the Milky Way at this time was actually switching back and forth between a swan and an old man. This is. Nobita scratched his head, looking at the Cygnus constellation that changed back and forth in the starry sky, embarrassed and didn't know what to say. After all, he didn't know much about this knowledge. I know what's going on. Just when Nobita, Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia were at a loss as they looked at the changing pattern in the starry sky, Dekisuji suddenly said, "Legend has it that in ancient Greek mythology, the god Zeus wanted to get close to a woman he admired, so he turned into a swan. I think that's why the pattern of the Cygnus constellation changes back and forth between a human and a swan." Wow, that's how it is. Fat Tiger and Sunia expressed their surprise after hearing Dekisuji's explanation. As for Shizuka, she was even more direct and said to Dekisuji with admiration, "Dekisuji-san is really knowledgeable." Yeah. Fat Tiger and Sunia on the side also nodded quickly to agree with what Shizuka said. It's not as exaggerated as you said. I just read a lot of books, and it just so happens that there is some knowledge about constellations among them. Dekisuji scratched his head and explained to Shizuka, Fat Tiger, and Sunia with an embarrassed look on his face. Anyway, Dekisuji-san knows a lot. After Dekisuji finished explaining, Shizuka still did not forget to praise Dekisuji. Looking at Shizuka standing in front of them and chatting happily, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Shizuka all looked at them. Especially seeing Shizuka's increasing admiration for Dekisuji, Nobita suddenly became anxious and almost cried. He quickly ran to Doraemon, holding the Constellation Legend simulator tightly, and said to Doraemon with a bitter face, "Doraemon, please help me. If this continues, Dekisuji will steal all the limelight." "Oh, I see." Doraemon, who had just come back to his senses from Dekisuji's explanation, instinctively replied after hearing Nobita's call for help. Looking at this scene, although Nobita was very unhappy, he didn't say anything. but urged Doraemon to quickly take out the props to help him. Doraemon hurriedly searched in the 4-dimensional pocket, and after a search, he finally took out a string of tongue covers of different colors from the 4-dimensional pocket. Nobi Daichi looked at the tongue cover in Doraemon's hand, and was also very curious. To be honest, he also wanted to experience it, but the timing was not right. This item is called a tongue cover. The blue tongue cover is called a praise tongue cover, which can turn you into a praise master. Doraemon held up the blue tongue cover on the far left of the string of tongue covers in his hand, and explained to Nobita. Then he picked up the red tongue cover on the far right of the string, and explained to Nobita. This red tongue cover is a coral tongue cover, which can turn you into a coral master. Listening to Doraemon's explanation, Nobita was not very satisfied with the 2 tongue covers Doraemon had mentioned so far, so he looked at Doraemon again. And this green tongue cover is called a reading tongue cover. As long as you wear it, you will speak as if you have read a book, and you will be able to say many things that you didn't know before. Ah, Doraemon, there is no need to introduce other tongue covers. I want this green reading tongue cover. Oh, okay. Doraemon originally wanted to introduce the other colored tongue covers to Nobita one by one, but after hearing Nobita's words, he immediately stopped the idea of introducing them. Then he took off a green tongue cover from a string of tongue covers and handed it to Nobita. After handing the green tongue cover to Nobita, Doraemon put all the remaining tongue covers back into the 4-dimensional pocket. Nobita looked at the green tongue cover in his hand and felt excited. Then he quickly put the tongue cover into his mouth, and it stuck perfectly to his tongue. After Nobita attached the tongue cover to the tongue sleeve, he unconsciously stuck his tongue out of his mouth, and after babbling a few words that no one could understand, he returned to normal again. Doraemon looked at Nobita's reaction and didn't feel anything wrong in his heart, nor did he have any other expression on his face, because Nobita's inexplicable action just now was an instinctive reaction after wearing the tongue cover. Then Nobita walked in front of Dekisuji, Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia with a swelled face and said, "Look at the sky. Do you know what this is?" While speaking, Nobita raised the Constellation Legend simulator in his hand to the sky and pressed a button on the Constellation Legend simulator at the same time. Then, in front of Dekisuji, Shizuka, and Sunia, an upside-down bearded middle-aged man made up of stars appeared in the Milky Way in the sky. I know, this is Hercules, the Hercules who experienced 12 adventures in ancient Greek mythology. After hearing Dekisuji's explanation, Nobita was shocked. Dekisuji actually knew that, so he was doomed to lose, right? But after hearing Sunia's next words, and seeing Dekisuji's reaction, Nobita breathed a sigh of relief. But why is it upside down? Sunia turned to Dekisuji, and asked his doubts. Chapter 90 Capturing Constellations. After Dekisuji's outstanding performance, Sunia has already regarded Dekisuji as an idol. In his opinion, Dekisuji would be able to answer such a question easily, but this time Dekisuji disappointed him. I really don't know about this. Dekisuji smiled apologetically at Sunia. Haha, let me explain it. Nobita laughed a few times, and pointed at the Hercules constellation in the sky, and explained to Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia. According to ancient Greek mythology, Hercules is the child of Zeus, the god of heaven, and Alcmene, the princess. But at that time, Zeus, the god of heaven, was already with Hera, the goddess who became the princess. After knowing about Zeus and Alcmene, Hera, the princess, was very angry. Then she cursed Hercules, and that's how Hercules became what he is now. Oh. After listening to Nobita's explanation, Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia all showed expressions of sudden enlightenment. How about it? I'm awesome, right? Looking at the sudden expressions on the faces of Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia, Nobita said with a smug look on his face. What? This is obviously the effect of the props Doraemon gave you, Nobita. Sunia said indignantly, looking at the smug expression on Nobita's face. Nobita automatically ignored Sunia's mocking words to him, and said to everyone again, then I will explain the knowledge about constellations to you. Because today is Tanabata, I will first explain the story of Cowherd and Weaver Girl to you. Nobi Daichi said to Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia, while holding the Constellation Legend simulator in one hand, and pointing to the sky. When Nobita pressed a button on the Constellation Legends simulator, the image of cowherd and weaver girl formed by the stars in a string suddenly appeared in the starry sky. But before Nobita had time to brag a few words, he saw Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia in front of him staring at the starry sky with wide eyes. Nobita instinctively sensed something wrong and quickly turned his head to look at the Milky Way in the night sky. When he saw the strange pattern of cowherd and weaver girl on the Milky Way, he was shocked. What's going on? The pattern of cowherd and weaver girl on the Milky Way should be located on both sides of the Milky Way. But now the image that Nobita, Shizuka, Izukasuji and others saw from the starry sky was that the cowherd and the weaver girl were hugging each other. After seeing this weird situation, Doraemon hurried to Nobita's side, and Nobi Daichi followed closely behind Doraemon. Doraemon, what's going on? Nobita, who was at a loss, had to ask Doraemon behind him. Nobita, do you remember? The last time we sent cowherd and the weaver girl back, they were hugging each other. I think this may be the reason. This reason? Nobita recalled the scene at home before, and it seemed to be similar to what Doraemon said. While Nobita and Doraemon were talking, Shizuka, Izukasuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia all surrounded Nobita and Doraemon. Nobita, then you should quickly get them down, separate them and send them back. Oh, okay. Nobita pressed the blue button on the Constellation Legends simulator after hearing what Doraemon said. Ah, Nobita, when I told you to put them down, I meant cowherd and weaver girl, not the other constellations. Huh. Nobita had just come back to his senses from Doraemon's words after being stimulated. When he heard Doraemon's words, his face immediately changed. He knew that he must have done something wrong again. Nobita wanted to stop Nobita immediately after hearing Doraemon's words, but Nobita pressed the Constellation Legends simulator too fast. As soon as he raised his foot, Nobita had already pressed the blue button of the Constellation Legends simulator. Nobita had no choice but to retract his left foot. Then with a bang, layers of white smoke filled up behind Nobita. After the white smoke dissipated, the 12 constellations materialized and appeared in front of Nobita. Nobita, Doraemon and others. There are good and evil in the 12 constellations. The first reaction of Nobita, Doraemon and others, after seeing the 12 constellations materialize, was to run away first. In addition, one of the giant white pythons, that looked like a python was hissing, which made Nobita, Doraemon and others even more scared. Therefore, Nobita, Doraemon and others immediately scattered and ran to the woods behind. Help, Mom. After seeing this scene, Sunia ran to the back instantly, but he might have run too fast, and he didn't know what he got into, so he just ate the mud. But this didn't stop Sunia's desire to escape. After accidentally falling, Sunia immediately got up from the ground and continued to run towards the dense woods behind. Others also ran towards the dense woods behind, and the 12 constellations that materialized from the starry sky. Many of the constellations also ran madly towards the direction where Nobita, Doraemon and others fled after seeing the white giant python. Nobita, Doraemon and others gathered together again in a bush after temporarily escaping from the dangerous 12 constellations. Doraemon, what should we do now? Nobita asked Doraemon anxiously. Shizuka, Izukasuji and others also looked at Doraemon expectantly, hoping that he could come up with a solution. Doraemon did not disappoint everyone. After searching in his 4-dimensional pocket, he took out some small nets that looked like they were used to catch small fish, and then distributed one to each of the others. After seeing that everyone had a small net, Doraemon explained to Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Shizuka and others, this small net is used to catch constellations. As long as you use it to catch those materialized constellations, the constellations will become stars in the small net. Don't look at it as small, but it can really catch those constellations. Doraemon looked at the puzzled and unbelieving expressions on the faces of Nobita, Shizuka and others, and explained to them one more sentence. In order to make Nobita, Shizuka, Izukasuji and others really believe it, Doraemon also caught a constellation in front of Nobita and others. Looking at the stars transformed from constellations in Doraemon's hand, Nobita, Shizuka, Izukasuji and others really believed what Doraemon said from the bottom of their hearts. Then everyone planned to split into several waves to capture those constellations. Chapter 91 Sagittarius Mutation. Just when everyone was about to separate, Shizuka's face suddenly became strange, and then she said with a smile, "I seem to have a constellation here." Then she walked out of the bushes in small steps, and behind Shizuka was a constellation, Cygnus. At this time, the Cygnus, which had already materialized, turned into a swan, blushing and spreading its wings, holding Shizuka's skirt with its mouth. When the swan came out of the bushes biting Shizuka's skirt, it saw Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon, and its eyes were full of cuteness. Nobita saw this scene, and how could he bear it, and rushed directly to Shizuka and the swan, and then waved the small net in his hand, to cover the swan who was looking confused. When the small net covered the swan's head, the swan immediately turned into a stream of light, and entered the net. Nobita looked into the net, and saw that the swan or the Cygnus just now had turned into a shining star. Then Nobita took the stars out of the net, and handed them to Doraemon. After Doraemon put the stars into his 4-dimensional pocket for safekeeping, everyone split up into several groups, to look for the stars. Fat Tiger and Sunia were on one team, Nobita and Doraemon were on one team, and Ekisuji and Shizuka were on another. It wasn't that Nobita didn't want to be on the same team with Shizuka, but facing the mistakes he had made, he thought it would be better to solve the problem first. Let's go to the place where the constellations descended first, Nobita suggested to Nobita and Doraemon. When Nobita, and Doraemon walked out of the jungle and came to the open space where the constellations descended at the beginning, they found that there was already nothing there. So Nobita, and Doraemon ran down the mountain. According to their estimation, the constellation should have already gone down the mountain. At this time, in an alley, Nobi Daichi and Nobita's father Nobi Shinsuke was holding a briefcase and staggering towards home because he was drunk. When he came to a crossroads, Nobi Shinsuke was about to turn when a white giant python suddenly appeared on the street in front of him, chasing some other strange things. "Ah, there is a monster." After being stunned for a few seconds, Nobi Shinsuke screamed and immediately turned around and ran away, as if he was escaping for his life. He disappeared a few seconds later. Cowherd and Weaver Girl sat on a giant eagle. With the help of the giant eagle, they played in the air for a few circles and planned to come down, so the giant eagle landed on a high ground by a river. "Thank you, bye." Cowherd and Weaver Girl climbed down from the back of the giant eagle and waved to the giant eagle. Looking at a couple sitting on the grass not far from them, Cowherd and Weaver Girl smiled at them kindly. They had no idea how much their actions had frightened the couple. Then the Cowherd and the Weaver Girl jumped away from here, while the giant eagle folded its wings and stood there motionless. "Hey, why is there a statue of an eagle here?" At this time, a male policeman pushing a bicycle walked along the path to the side of the giant eagle, looking at the giant eagle that was as motionless as a statue, and asked in confusion, "Do you know who is so immoral that he put the statue here?" The male policeman couldn't think of any answer, so he asked a couple sitting in the bushes. The couple sitting in the bushes didn't say anything, but just shook their heads to show that they didn't know anything. "That's really strange," the male policeman said and turned to look at the giant eagle statue. "Hey, why is it gone? Am I dazzled?" The male policeman rubbed his eyes hard in disbelief. At this time, there was no giant eagle sculpture in front of the male policeman. There was only Doraemon holding a small net and covering the ground. The reason why the male police officer could not see the giant eagle statue was because the giant eagle just now had been covered by Doraemon with a small net and turned back into a star. "Hello, police uncle." Doraemon smiled awkwardly at the male police officer and fled from here quickly. Looking at the figure of Doraemon who was about to disappear, the male police officer touched his head in confusion. "It's really strange today. First I saw a giant eagle statue, and then it disappeared inexplicably, and then I met a talking raccoon cat." After sighing, the male police officer rode his bicycle and left here. The couple sitting in the bushes looked at each other in astonishment, and the scream that had been suppressed for a long time was finally uttered at this time. "Ah! Don't run." Fat Tiger and Sunia were chasing a white giant python in the alley. Although it was a giant python, it had dragon horns on its head. At this time, the white python stopped, looked at Fat Tiger and Sunia, and others behind him, stuck out its tongue, made a hissing sound, and swam towards the two of them. When it got close to Fat Tiger and Sunia, it opened its bloody mouth and bit towards them. Due to the distance, Fat Tiger and Sunia's small net could not cover the white python at all. Seeing the white python opening its mouth and biting towards them, Fat Tiger and Sunia were immediately scared and lay on the ground. Golden apple. At this critical moment, Dekisuji and Shizuka rushed behind Fat Tiger and Sunia. After seeing the critical situation of Fat Tiger and Sunia, Dekisuji picked a golden apple from a fake tree in front of a store and threw it at the white python. Shizuka, who was following behind Dekisuji, looked at this scene and didn't understand why. What's the point of throwing apples? What surprised Shizuka was that when the golden apple thrown by Dekisuji came into contact with the white python immediately fell asleep and then fell to the ground with a bang. Dekisuji walked over and covered the white python with a small net, and then the white python turned back into a star. After Fat Tiger and Sunia got up from the ground, they walked to the side of Dekisuji. Seeing the confusion in the eyes of Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia, Dekisuji explained, legend has it that the greatest feature of the dragon constellation is that it can stay awake and not sleep, so the dragon took on the important task of guarding the golden apple, but the golden apple was stolen the moment the dragon dozed off. Oh. After hearing Dekisuji's explanation, Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia finally understood what had just happened. In a small alley, Nobi Daichi and Nobita were quietly following the Sagittarius in front of them. The lower body of Sagittarius was a horse, and the upper body was a human, holding a bow and several arrows in his hands. Daichi, you observe the surroundings in the back. I will go to capture the Sagittarius in front. Nobita turned his head and said to Nobi Daichi, yeah. Nobi Daichi did not refute the act of Nobita. In his opinion, it was the same whoever captured that constellation. After all, according to the original development, Sagittarius would not pose any danger to them, and Nobi Daichi did not have to worry about Nobita's safety. But before Nobita could take 2 steps forward, the Sagittarius in front of them suddenly turned around, and his eyes, which should have been a normal color, turned blood red. Chapter 92 Explanation. Not good. Seeing this scene, Nobi Daichi instinctively sensed the deadly danger. Sure enough, after seeing Nobita and Nobi Daichi, Sagittarius drew his bow and shot an arrow. The next moment, a cold arrow flashed directly towards Nobita. When he saw Sagittarius turn around and found that Sagittarius had mutated, Nobi Daichi rushed directly towards Nobita, who was a few meters in front of him. At the moment of rushing over, Nobi Daichi's mind moved, and the Emperor Armor instantly combined automatically. Clang! The arrow shot by Sagittarius directly hit the armor of Nobi Daichi, who had transformed into the Emperor Knight. The force of the arrow shot by Sagittarius is not small. If it really hits a person, the person who was shot would probably be pierced instantly. But it's nothing for the Emperor Armor. Nobi Daichi, who had rushed over to protect Nobita, stood up straight after the arrow shot by the mutant Sagittarius slipped off his body. Then he stood in front of Nobita to prevent the mutant Sagittarius from shooting arrows at Nobita again. Looking at Nobita, who suddenly put on a handsome armor, Nobita's eyes were full of shock and confusion. Nobita ignored the shocked Nobita at this time, but looked at the mutated Sagittarius, who was more than 10 meters away from them, with a serious face. Is this what the system said about the change in the running trajectory? This thought suddenly emerged in Nobita's mind. If it was the period of the Emperor Armor's full victory, no, even if it was just the period of the full victory of the ordinary version of the Emperor Armor, he could easily kill a guy like the mutant Sagittarius, but now he dared not be careless. After he transformed into the Emperor Man, the sense of danger that the mutant Sagittarius gave him had been greatly reduced, but there was still some danger. If he was alone, he could just rush up and confront the mutant Sagittarius head on, but he also had to protect Nobita behind him, which was a bit difficult. Just as Nobi Daichi was thinking about what to do, Doraemon, Shizuka, Izukisuji and others suddenly ran up from behind him and Nobita. Nobita, Daichi, you guys did it. Doraemon, who was shouting the names of Nobi Daichi and Nobita, looked at the scene in front of him, and his excited words suddenly stopped. Damn. Nobita, what's going on? Who is he? Doraemon ran directly to Nobita and asked, regardless of whether Nobi Daichi, who had transformed into Emperor Man, was in danger. As for Shizuka, Izukisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia, Seeing this weird scene in front of them, they stopped and did not run towards Doraemon and Nobita. Doraemon, he is Daichi. Nobita still hadn't reacted to the deadly danger he had just faced, and Daichi's transformation into Emperor Man. After hearing Doraemon's question, he pointed at Emperor Man facing him, and Doraemon said hesitantly, "What?" Doraemon was shocked by Nobita's answer, and crashed for a few seconds. How could this happen? Doraemon looked up at the Emperor, who was as tall as an adult, and said to himself in confusion. While Doraemon was talking to Nobita, Nobita had fought with the mutant Sagittarius for several rounds, and blocked several arrows shot by the mutant Sagittarius. Let's leave here first. Looking at Nobita fighting with the mutant Sagittarius, Doraemon helped Nobita up, and said to him, clang. Another arrow emitting a cold light shot into the Emperor's armor, and then slipped off the Emperor's armor. Nobita rushed to the front of Sagittarius, grabbed one of the mutant Sagittarius legs and pulled it, and the mutant Sagittarius fell to the right. Daichi, catch it. Nobi Daichi looked back, and found a small net flying towards him, and Doraemon was shouting at him. Nobi Daichi stretched out his hand, and caught the small net thrown by Doraemon, then turned his head to look at the mutant Sagittarius. At this time, the mutant Sagittarius still fell to the ground, and did not get up. Looking at the mutant Sagittarius like this, without any hesitation, Nobi Daichi directly covered the mutant Sagittarius with the small net. A stream of light flashed, and the mutant Sagittarius turned into a shining star, after entering the small net. Then Nobi Daichi walked towards Nobita, Doraemon, Shizuka and others. After walking a few steps, Nobi Daichi had an idea. A burst of light suddenly shone on Nobi Daichi's body. After the light dissipated, Nobi Daichi had returned to his original appearance. Soon Nobi Daichi walked in front of Doraemon, and then handed the star in his hand, that was transformed from the mutant Sagittarius to Doraemon. Seeing Nobi Daichi, who had turned back to his original form, Doraemon finally believed that the golden armor was actually Nobi Daichi. Daichi, what's going on? How did you become like that? Doraemon asked Nobi Daichi his doubts. Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia also surrounded Nobi Daichi at this time. Fat Tiger and Sunia's faces were full of envy, and even Dekisuji's eyes had a hint of desire. The handsomeness of the Emperor armor is probably enough to make any boy fall in love with it. As for Shizuka, her eyes were full of admiration when she looked at Nobi Daichi. Of course, she only admired the Emperor armor, not Nobi Daichi. I don't know either. At that time, I only wanted to protect my brother, so I rushed towards him directly. Who knew that I would be covered by a layer of armor all of a sudden? This was the line that Nobi Daichi had thought of a long time ago. As for showing the Emperor armor to everyone, if you want to blame it on the fact that the situation was too urgent at that time, and Nobi Daichi didn't care about anything else. Besides, showing the Emperor armor is not without benefits. At least it will facilitate the future adventure. As for whether Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia will tell others about his possession of the Emperor armor and cause him trouble, there is no need to worry about this. After all, props like Doraemon's bamboo dragonfly, any door and even time machine are known by Shizuka and others. Isn't it a big deal? Maybe it's the effect of one of Doraemon's props. At most, he can borrow it from Doraemon. I believe Doraemon will not refuse. After hearing Nobi Daichi's explanation, Nobita, Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia were all confused. Only Doraemon said thoughtfully, Daichi, according to what you said, if I'm not mistaken, it should be the product of some alien civilization. And there are many cases like yours in the future world, but the alien products obtained by those people are not very useful. After hearing Doraemon's reasoning and explanation, Nobi Daichi, who had a normal face, was also confused. This explanation is just too damn in line with what he wants. Thanks to SUIU for the 2 monthly tickets. Chapter 93, 2 more. Nobita, Shizuka, Izuka Tsuji and others who were still confused nodded thoughtfully after hearing Doraemon's explanation, as if they understood something. In fact, they didn't understand anything. Then Daichi, can you change into that form in the future? Nobita looked at Nobi Daichi with a curious look in his eyes. Yes, and I can change whenever I want. Although Nobi Daichi explained to Nobita, Doraemon, Shizuka, Fat Tiger, Sunia, and Izuka Tsuji could hear what he said. Okay, since Daichi is fine, let's talk about capturing constellations. Doraemon's words shifted everyone's attention from Nobi Daichi to him. Then Doraemon took out all the stars that symbolize the constellations they captured from the 4-dimensional pocket and found that 2 were missing after checking. The missing ones are the stars that symbolize the cowherd and the weaver girl. Doraemon said to Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Shizuka and others after a careful search. Well, it's late now. I'm sorry to bother you all tonight. You should go home and rest first. Doraemon said to Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia. Shizuka, Dekisuji, Fat Tiger and Sunia also felt that it was late, so they said goodbye to Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon one by one and went home. After Shizuka, Dekisuji and others left, Doraemon took out 3 bamboo dragonflies from his 4-dimensional pocket and handed 2 of them to Nobita and Nobita Daichi. Let's go home. Then the 3 of them flew towards home. Mr. Cowherd, Princess Weaver. In the open space where Nobita, Shizuka and others often played, Cowherd and Weaver were playing with the game facilities on the open space, with happy smiles on their faces. Just as Cowherd and Weaver were standing on a game facility and calling each other, Nobita Shinsuke suddenly ran between them in a panic with a briefcase. Seeing Nobi Shinsuke running in panic, the Cowherd and the Weaver girl showed curiosity in their eyes, but they didn't care too much, but continued to play. Plop. Nobi Shinsuke fell directly into a pool in the open space. After falling into the pool, Nobi Shinsuke, who was originally confused because of drinking too much, suddenly woke up. Hey, why am I here? After seeing himself soaking in the pool, Nobi Shinsuke was full of doubts. However, no matter how he tried to recall the previous things, he couldn't remember anything, so he simply stopped thinking about it. After climbing out of the pool, Nobi Shinsuke sat on the rocks surrounding the pool, then took off his wet coat and twisted his hands hard to squeeze the water out of the coat. Cowherd husband, Princess Weaver girl. Looking at the cowherd and the weaver girl playing in front of him, Nobi Shinsuke couldn't help but sigh. What a loving couple. I remember my mother and I were like this back then. Nobi Shinsuke seemed to recall something happy, with a happy smile on his face. When Nobi Shinsuke sighed and smiled happily, the cowherd and the weaver girl were already standing in front of Nobi Shinsuke hand in hand. Looking at the happy smile on your face, I guess you must have had a good memory when you were young. I wonder if you can tell us about your good memories with her? The weaver girl smiled at Nobi Shinsuke who was sitting by the pool. Of course, but this place is not very suitable, and my clothes are all wet, so I need to go home to change. You come to my house and I'll tell you. After Nobi Shinsuke came back to his senses from his memories, he also smiled and said to the cowherd and the weaver girl, "Is it okay? I'd be happy to." Then the cowherd and the weaver girl followed Nobi Shinsuke home. With the help of the bamboo dragonfly, Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon quickly return home. After flying to the room on the 2nd floor, Doraemon took back Nobita's bamboo dragonflies and then put them back into the 4-dimensional pocket. Oh, what should we do now? If we don't send the constellations back to the starry sky before dawn, they will never be able to go back again. Doraemon sat on the tatami and looked out the window at the night sky, which was only a few hours away from dawn, and said distressedly, "How could it be?" Nobita was a little surprised when he heard Doraemon's sad words. How could it be so serious? Nobita looked at Nobita and Doraemon, who looked distressed, and suddenly said, "Don't talk first, listen carefully." Nobita and Doraemon showed puzzled expressions on their faces at the same time. Although they didn't know why Nobita asked them to do this, they still did what Nobita said. Then the room where Nobita and Doraemon were suddenly quieted down. Mr. Cowherd, Princess Weaver. These were the voices of Cowherd and Weaver. Nobita and Doraemon showed excitement on their faces. Then Nobita and Doraemon stood up from the tatami and ran downstairs, because they heard that the sound seemed to come from downstairs. Nobita Daichi watched Nobita and Doraemon hurriedly stand up from the tatami and run downstairs, and followed them closely. When Nobita Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon rushed to the living room on the 1st floor, they saw Cowherd and Weaver Girl. At this time, Cowherd and Weaver Girl were still playing, while Nobita Shinsuke was excited, standing by the table with a little drunkenness, watching Cowherd and Weaver Girl, holding a bottle of wine in his hand, and drinking from time to time. "Is it you, Cowherd and Weaver Girl stopped playing after seeing Nobi Daichi and the other two. You should go back. Doraemon stood in front of Nobi Daichi and Nobita and said to Cowherd and Weaver Girl. No. Cowherd and Weaver Girl hugged each other tightly, rejecting Doraemon's request. If you insist on letting us go back, please let us cuddle up. Cowherd and Weaver Girl looked at each other and asked Doraemon. That's not possible, because I can't change the position of the stars. Doraemon hurriedly said after hearing the request of Cowherd and Weaver Girl. Then we won't go back. Looking at this scene, Doraemon didn't know what to do. At this moment, the door of the living room was suddenly opened, and Nobita Mako stood at the door with a towel wrapped around her head and pajamas. Do you know what time it is now? You are still making such a loud noise. Nobita Mako scolded Nobi Shinsuke. There are guests here. Speak politely and give me some face. Facing the angry Nobita Mako, Nobi Shinsuke felt guilty and said angrily. Chapter 94 Sashimi. Maybe Nobita Mako thought it was not a big deal to stand outside, so she prepared to enter the living room from the door. Bang! Nobita Mako just took a step forward and fell down because she stepped on something. Ouch. Mom, are you okay? Nobi Shinsuke saw Nobita Mako fall down and immediately put the bottle in his hand on the table and then went to help Nobita Mako. Nobita Mako stood up with the help of Nobi Shinsuke and then looked at the thing on the ground that tripped her. It turned out to be a sock. Nobita Mako's anger towards Nobi Shinsuke had dissipated a little after being helped up by Nobi Shinsuke. But after seeing the sock on the ground, that made her fall. Nobita Mako became even angrier than before. Dad, how many times have I told you not to put things randomly? Nobita Mako pointed at the sock on the ground and said angrily to Nobi Shinsuke. Seeing that Nobita Mako did not give him face at all, Nobi Shinsuke was also anxious and no longer gave in. You often use my pen, and then I don't know where you put it. After I looked for it, I found that you put my pen in the refrigerator. Nobi Shinsuke retorted. You often. Then Nobita Mako and Nobi Shinsuke started to curse at each other and throw things at each other. Nobita, hold it in, don't laugh. Doraemon said to Nobita, whose face was red from holding back. You are still the same. Nobita said unhappily. Looking at Nobita Mako and Nobita Shinsuke fighting in front of him, Nobi Daichi did not smile like Nobita and Doraemon, but only had infinite emotion. Why are they like this? Cowherd and Weaver Girl looked at Nobita Mako and Nobita Shinsuke's inexplicable actions and wondered. The more they quarrel, the better their relationship is. Listening to Doraemon's explanation, Zinu showed a bright smile on her face, and then turned to Cowherd and said, Cowherd husband, let's do it too. Okay. Seeing that Cowherd and Zinu were also in a quarrel, Doraemon and Nobita were helpless. What should they do? Fortunately for them, this situation did not last long. Standing in the yard, looking at Cowherd and Zinu holding the stars representing other constellations, Doraemon asked, have you really decided? Yes, we have decided that we will separate. But didn't you all want to separate before? Nobita, who was standing next to Doraemon, asked the question that he was also Doraemon. It's enough to see each other once a year. Zinu smiled at Nobi Daichi and others. That's right. Think about the sweetness and sadness of missing Princess Zinu for a whole year. It's really happy. Cowherd turned his head and looked at Zinu next to him. Zinu was obviously touched by Cowherd's words. Mr. Cowherd. Princess Weaver. Seeing this scene, everyone fell down together. Here it comes again. Doraemon said helplessly, then took out the Constellation Legend simulator from his 4-dimensional pocket and pressed the red button on it. With a bang, the Cowherd and Weaver disappeared from the spot. So far, the 12 constellations have returned to the starry sky again. After finishing these things, Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon returned to the second floor room to continue sleeping. Nobi Shinsuke sat with his legs crossed next to the French window, looking at the bright starry sky in the sky, wondering what he was thinking. When Nobi Shinsuke didn't notice it at all, or thicker piece of clothing had been draped over him. When the clothes had already fallen on Nobi Shinsuke's body, Nobi Shinsuke reacted and smiled at Nobita Mako who was sitting next to him. Then Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Mako looked at the bright starry sky together. There was no conversation all night, and when the sun was shining, Nobi Daichi woke up. Ding, you can check in today. Do you want to check in? Check in. Check-in successfully. Get 1 million yen. Opening the system space, the original 2 million yen became 3 million yen, after adding 1 million yen. Looking at the money in the system space, Nobi Daichi suddenly remembered that he seemed to have not asked Doraemon to replace the defective and low-level props he bought. Looking at Doraemon crawling down from the closet, Nobi Daichi walked over and took out all the 3 million yen in the system space and handed it to Doraemon. After seeing Nobi Daichi give him another 3 million yen, Doraemon didn't show any surprise on his face and calmly took the 3 million yen from Nobi Daichi. At this time, Nobita was still sleeping, and Nobita Daichi didn't worry about Nobita knowing why Nobita didn't question the source of food for Pisu and Charmander. At the beginning, Nobita was only concerned about Pisu's growth and his bet, and for some other reasons, he automatically ignored these. Doraemon, I want you to replace some of your props. After all, your props, ahem, you know. Well, Doraemon seemed to be thinking about something, and said after a moment, tomorrow, the future department store will hold an event. I'll go tomorrow. Okay. Nobi Daichi didn't say anything against it. Anyway, those props were not needed for the time being. Not long after Nobi Daichi and Doraemon got up, Nobita also got up. After lunch, Nobi Shinsuke took Nobi Daichi and Nobita out to buy things. When they came back, Nobi Shinsuke, Nobita and Nobi Daichi passed by a sashimi shop. At this time, some people were gathered in front of the sashimi shop. Don't miss it if you pass by. The top grade big-tail fish slices, only this last box is left. In front of the sashimi shop, a middle-aged man shouted to the people around him. Oh, this is the highest quality big-tail fish slices. Yes, I really want to buy it, but the price is a bit expensive. The two women stood together and pointed at the big-tail fish slices on a table. Nobi Shinsuke was outside the crowd, listening to the sashimi waiter shouting and looking at the sashimi on the table, and couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Why don't we buy it? Nobi Shinsuke said to Nobi Daichi and Nobita, who were standing next to him with dishes in their hands. But the big-tail fish slices are too expensive. If you buy it, your mother will scold you. Nobita said the key issue that made Nobi Shinsuke hesitate. This is the highest quality sashimi, and there is only one box left. In order to thank everyone for their continued support, this last box is 30% off. 30% off. The waiter standing next to the sashimi finally used his trump card, and this became the last straw that overwhelmed Nobi Shinsuke. What? 30% off? After hearing the clerk's last words, Nobi Shinsuke no longer hesitated and directly squeezed into the crowd and said to the clerk, I'll buy it. Chapter 95 Gulliver's Tunnel. After hurriedly taking out some money from his wallet and handing it to the clerk at the sashimi shop, Nobi Shinsuke grabbed the last box of sashimi left on the table. Then Nobi Shinsuke took Nobi Daichi and Nobita back home quickly. Nobi's house, in the restaurant. At this time, the family of 5, Nobi Tamaki, Nobi Shinsuke, Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon, were gathered around the dining table and staring at the box of big-tail fish sashimi on the table. Dad, can't you consider the family's expenses and buy such an expensive thing? Nobi Tamaki looked at Nobi Shinsuke with a rather bad face. It's okay to buy it once in a while, and it's 30% off. Nobi Shinsuke argued. But it's still very expensive at 30% off. Nobi Tamaki's face was still indignant, but she didn't say anything after saying this. At this time, a black cat was walking back and forth on the roof of the first floor of Nobi's house. Through the window, the black cat saw the box of big-tail fish sashimi placed on the table between Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others. Meow. After seeing the box of big-tail fish sashimi, the black cat stuck out its tongue and licked the hair around its mouth, then jumped directly from the roof of the first floor to the ground. Opening the unlocked door, the black cat entered the restaurant. Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Mako, who were sulking with each other, were stunned when they saw the black cat. What's going on? Doraemon got a little anxious when he saw the black cat, and then said to the others, this black cat is a famous thief in the neighborhood. No, what is it going to do? Just as Nobita Mako and Nobi Shinsuke looked at Doraemon and listened to his explanation, Nobita suddenly said anxiously. Everyone immediately turned around and found that the black cat had jumped onto the table and walked to the side of the box of big-tail fish sashimi. Looking at this situation, the other people present knew what the black cat wanted to do without thinking. It wanted to steal the big tailfish sashimi. Nobi Shinsuke walked forward, pretending to be fierce, and trying to drive the black cat away, but who would have thought that the black cat was even more fierce than Nobi Shinsuke. Seeing Nobi Shinsuke coming over, the black cat actually showed its fangs. Its hair all over its body was bunched up like needles, and it made a fierce cry. Meow. Nobi Shinsuke was directly scared back a few steps by the fierce black cat. Seeing Nobi Shinsuke being scared back by itself, the black cat used one claw to knock the box of big tailfish sashimi to the ground. Then it used its claws to tear the plastic film wrapped around the big tailfish sashimi, and picked up half of the big tailfish sashimi with satisfaction. In this way, in the astonished eyes of Nobi Shinsuke, Nobita, and Nobi Tamaki, the black cat left here through the open window. Looking at the only half of the big tailfish sashimi left on the floor, everyone felt both pity and helplessness. What should I do? There is only half of the big tail sashimi left, Nobita said with a wry smile to Nobi Shinsuke and Nobi Tamako. Nobi Shinsuke didn't know what to say when he saw this. Nobi Tamako had always had a problem with Nobi Shinsuke buying such expensive things. Seeing this situation, she wanted to take the opportunity to say a few words, but Doraemon interrupted her with his words, and then looked at Doraemon suspiciously. I have a way. After saying this, Doraemon put his chubby little hand into the 4-dimensional pocket, and then took out a prop from the 4-dimensional pocket. Gulliver Tunnel. Gulliver Tunnel. It is a tunnel with a large opening on one side and a small opening on the other side. The large side is about the height of an average person. If a person enters from the large side and comes out from the small side, he will become a small person. The clothes on his body will also become smaller. If he walks backwards, he will return to his original state, but if he enters from the large side again, he will become even smaller. After taking out the Gulliver Tunnel from the 4-dimensional pocket, Doraemon placed the Gulliver Tunnel on the ground. Nobi Shinsuke and Nobi Tamako asked Doraemon at the same time, what is this? Don't worry about what it is, just go in. Doraemon pushed Nobi Shinsuke from behind, and entered the Gulliver Tunnel from the larger side of the Gulliver Tunnel. Nobi Tamako followed Nobi Shinsuke into the Gulliver Tunnel, followed by Doraemon, Nobita, and Nobi Daichi. Wow, the house has become bigger. Nobi Shinsuke was surprised when he looked at the various gigantic furniture around him. It's not that the house has become bigger, it's that we have become smaller. Doraemon explained to Nobi Shinsuke. Then Doraemon ran to the plastic film of the box of big tailfish sashimi and jumped on it a few times with the elasticity of the plastic film. Now, we can eat our fill. Doraemon smiled and said to everyone. Yeah. Nobita also ran to the side of the big tailfish sashimi and nodded. Nobi Daichi also walked over after Nobita ran to the big-tailed fish sashimi. Mom, don't you think it's a good deal to be able to eat so much big-tailed fish sashimi? Looking at the big-tailed fish sashimi, which was only half left, but because they had shrunk after passing through the Gulliver Tunnel, only half of it was enough for them to eat their fill. Is that the question I am talking about? I spend $1, as if it were two. After hearing what Nobi Shinsuke said, Nobi Tamaki was furious and directly retorted. At worst, I'll just deduct it from my pocket money. Nobi Shinsuke also blushed and said unwillingly, you still have the nerve to say that? Don't you know how much pocket money you have? Humph, if you have the guts, don't eat the big-tailed fish sashimi I bought. Humph, if you don't want to eat it, then don't eat it. Then Nobi Shinsuke and Nobi Tamaki both crossed their arms and turned their heads away, not looking at each other. Don't be like this, we are all family after all, can't we just talk nicely? Doraemon lay on the plastic film, looking at Nobi Shinsuke and Nobi Tamaki like this, and tried to persuade them helplessly. Yes. Nobi Daichi and Nobita also quickly echoed Doraemon. After hearing what Doraemon said, and seeing the nervous Nobi Daichi and Nobita, Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Tamaki decided to put aside their unhappiness for the time being. Then Nobi Shinsuke and Nobi Tamaki walked towards the direction of the big-tail fish sashimi. Seeing this scene, Doraemon, Nobita and Nobi Daichi all breathed a sigh of relief. After everyone gathered around the big-tail fish sashimi, Doraemon slid down from the plastic film, walked to a corner of the box, and then pointed at something and said excitedly, this is wasabi sauce. Well, but you need soy sauce to eat sashimi, Nobi Shinsuke said again, after seeing the large piece of wasabi sauce in the corner of the box. The soy sauce seems to be on the table, Nobita Mako said to the others. Then everyone turned their eyes to the table that was dozens of meters high for them now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Accident. What should we do? Nobi Shinsuke turned to Doraemon and asked. Let's go through the Gulliver Tunnel and then change back. Doraemon explained to Nobi Shinsuke and walked towards the Gulliver Tunnel. Nobita was particularly excited because he was about to eat sashimi. After watching Doraemon walk towards the Gulliver Tunnel, he did not walk but ran towards the Gulliver Tunnel. However, when Nobita was about to run to the small opening of the Gulliver Tunnel, a loud shout suddenly came from behind him. Nobita, danger. What, danger? Before Nobita could react, Nobita was hugged by Nobita Shinsuke, who ran over quickly and then fell to the ground and rolled quickly forward. This process happened in a flash, and when Nobita reacted a little, he heard a loud noise from behind. Then Nobita got up from the ground and looked behind him and found that it was the pole of the vacuum cleaner that fell. There is actually no big problem with the vacuum cleaner pole falling down. The problem is that the pole of the vacuum cleaner just happened to block the small opening of the Gulliver Tunnel. Doraemon ran over from the back and saw that Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita were not injured and put down his worries. Then he looked at the small opening of the Gulliver Tunnel blocked by the pole and began to worry. Who put the vacuum cleaner here? Nobi Shinsuke said a little angrily. I'm sorry, I will pay attention next time, Nobita Mako said to everyone embarrassedly. The reason why Nobita Mako said this is because such a mistake cannot be made again. After all, didn't you see that Nobita almost died because of this just now? Seeing Nobita Mako's apologetic face, plus they all knew that Nobita Mako didn't mean it. Nobita didn't get hurt, so Nobi Shinsuke didn't worry too much about it. Instead, he walked to the side of the vacuum cleaner pole and said to Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon, Nobita Mako, let's try to push the vacuum cleaner pole away. Then Nobi Daichi, Nobita Mako, Nobita and Doraemon all walked to the side of the vacuum cleaner pole. After seeing everyone walk to the side of the vacuum cleaner pole, Nobita Shinsuke said to Nobi Daichi and others, when I say push, everyone push together. Push. Then Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others pushed hard. After pushing for a while, everyone was sweating, but the vacuum cleaner pole still didn't move at all, so everyone finally gave up. Leaning against the vacuum cleaner, everyone sat down to rest. Doraemon, what should we do now? Nobita asked Doraemon, who was sitting next to him. Well, let me think about it. Doraemon began to think after hearing Nobita's words. At this time, Nobi Daichi suddenly said to Doraemon, Doraemon, you can use the magnifying light to enlarge us. That seems to make sense. Doraemon took out the magnifying light from his 4-dimensional pocket and then stood up from the ground. The others also stood up from the ground one by one. Then Doraemon stood in front of everyone and prepared to turn on the magnifying light. Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Nobita Shinsuke, and Nobita Mako waited for a while, but Doraemon still didn't move with the magnifying light. Seeing this scene, Nobita couldn't help but ask Doraemon, Doraemon, what are you doing? Why don't you enlarge us? Well, the magnifying light seems to be out of power. Doraemon explained to Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others with a dry laugh. This. After hearing Doraemon's explanation, the others didn't know what to do. Doraemon, the magnifying light should have spare batteries. Nobi Daichi asked Doraemon. Yes, it's in my spare 4-dimensional pocket in the closet on the 2nd floor. Yes, we can go get the spare battery, Doraemon said excitedly after hearing Nobi Daichi's reminder. But the battery of that magnifying light must be very big, Doraemon. How can you put it in? Nobita said puzzled. Haha, it's okay, I still have a shrinking light. Just shrink the battery and put it in the magnifying light. That should be no problem now. Let's go to the 2nd floor. Then Doraemon took the lead and left the restaurant. Nobita had something to say, but seeing Doraemon's hurried steps, He temporarily put down what he wanted to say. Soon Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon and others came to the stairs leading to the room on the second floor. Looking at the stairs that seemed like a ladder to heaven, everyone unconsciously felt that it was impossible to climb, but no one said to give up. Just as Doraemon was staring at the stairs that were quite high, even if it was one floor, thinking about how to climb up, Nobita walked up to Doraemon and said, "Doraemon, don't you have a door? Why don't you use it?" "Nobita, the door is broken. I've already taken it for repair. There's also a bamboo dragonfly. It seems so." Doraemon showed a look of realization and then took out the bamboo dragonfly from his 4-dimensional pocket. After putting the bamboo dragonfly on his head, Doraemon turned on the switch. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. After a few seconds, Doraemon put the bamboo dragonfly back into his 4-dimensional pocket with a depressed look. "What's wrong, Doraemon?" Nobita asked in confusion. "The bamboo dragonfly is out of power too. What should we do now?" Nobita said desperately, lying on the floor. "Let's try stepping on someone else to see if we can get up." Doraemon proposed another solution. Then everyone started trying again. After more than 10 minutes, everyone was tired and sweating and sat down in the same place. Obviously, Doraemon's solution failed again. "Let's go back to the restaurant and see if we can find another way." Doraemon had no choice but to say to Nobi Daichi and the others helplessly. So everyone returned to the restaurant next to the box of big tail sashimi. "See if we can climb up through that wire." Nobi Daichi pointed to a socket on the ground and said to Doraemon, "Nobita, Nobi Shinsuke and Nobi Tamaki, HMM." After hearing Nobi Daichi's words, Doraemon, Nobita and the others looked in the direction of Nobi Daichi's finger. There was a socket in the direction of Nobi Daichi's finger, and there was a wire on the socket. Looking up along the wire was connected to a kettle on the table. Seeing that Doraemon, Nobita Shinsuke and Nobita Tamaki all knew what he meant, Nobi Daichi took the lead and walked towards the socket. After walking to the side of the socket, Nobi Daichi first climbed up the socket and then walked to the wire connected to the table carefully to avoid stepping into the socket. Then he crawled along the thread to the table. Looking at Nobita Daichi's actions, Nobita Shinsuke, and Doraemon also walked to the socket and crawled along the thread to the table. Thanks to the reader 20200730093659124 for the reward of 100 coins. The reader 20201220152444990 for the reward of 100 coins. And the reader 20210116161073330 for the reward of 688 coins. Chapter 97 The Black Cat Comes Back. Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Nobi Shinsuke and Doraemon quickly climbed onto the table and walked to the place where the soy sauce was placed. "How should we get it down?" Nobi Shinsuke looked at the huge soy sauce bottle and scratched his head helplessly. "We can pour the soy sauce on the paper towel and squeeze the soy sauce out of the paper towel after going down." Nobita came up with a good idea. "Then let's do it." Nobi Shinsuke walked to the side of the soy sauce bottle and Doraemon walked to the other side of the soy sauce bottle. Then Nobi Shinsuke and Doraemon carefully put down the soy sauce bottle on each side. Nobi Daichi and Nobita took some paper towels from the paper towels and stood in front of the soy sauce bottle with their hands. Nobi Tamaki stood there without moving. In her opinion, it was enough for Nobi Daichi, Nobi Shinsuke, Nobita and Doraemon to do it. But when Nobi Tamaki accidentally turned his head and looked outside the door, his face changed instantly. It turned out that the black cat that had stolen half of their big tail sashimi appeared at the door again. At this time, the black cat had opened the door a crack, and its deep eyes were looking at Nobita Mako through the crack in the door, and it stretched out its tongue and licked the corners of its mouth unconsciously. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Nobita Mako stiffly moved a few steps to the side, and the cat in the crack at the door opened the door and slowly walked towards Nobita Mako. Nobita Mako looked at this situation, and she dared not hesitate at all, and ran directly to the socket. Then she climbed onto the table at a flying speed with the help of the thread. "Hey, Mom, how did you get up here?" Nobi Shinsuke asked, looking at Nobita Mako, who looked very bad and had cold sweat on her forehead. Then Nobi, Shinsuke and Doraemon helped the soy sauce bottle, which had tilted a little, back up. That black cat is here again. Nobita Mako held a big bowl and took a few deep breaths before she said to Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Nobi, Shinsuke and Doraemon. What? After hearing Nobita Mako's words, Nobi, Shinsuke, Nobita and Doraemon were all shocked. Then Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others walked to the edge of the table and looked under the table. Then they saw the black cat squatting next to the socket, and the next moment everyone ran to the back immediately, because the black cat made a jumping gesture after seeing Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others. You don't need to think about what will happen next, but the speed of the black cat is much faster than that of Nobi Daichi, Nobita and others who are now many times smaller. Before everyone ran a few steps, the black cat behind them had already jumped onto the table. Meow. The black cat looked at Nobita, Doraemon and others who were standing there and dared not move, and they were very nervous and cried out in joy. The pair of deep eyes stared at Nobi Daichi, and Nobita and the others were just like staring at delicious prey. Then the black cat pounced on everyone. Nobi Daichi, Nobita and the others immediately dispersed after seeing this. Bang! The black cat did not pounce on anyone, but knocked over a box of wine. The wine in the box flowed out of the box and soon covered a small area. There was actually not much wine left in the box, but it was still a lot in the eyes of Nobi Daichi, Nobita and the others who had become smaller at this time. This is such a waste. Nobita Shinsuke looked at the wine spilled on the table and muttered. Then, in the surprised eyes of Nobita, Doraemon, and Nobita Mako, he lay down next to the wine and drank several big sips. It's so delicious. Nobita Shinsuke couldn't help but mutter to himself. Meow. Seeing that he didn't pounce on anything, the black cat turned around and pounced on Nobita Shinsuke who was closest to him. Seeing the black cat rushing over, the half-drunk Nobi Shinsuke unconsciously turned a few times and just avoided the black cat's pounce. Looking at the half-drunk Nobi Shinsuke, Nobita Mako hurried over to support Nobi Shinsuke and then took Nobi Shinsuke to escape from the black cat. How could the black cat do as Nobita Mako wished? Then it pounced on Nobita Mako and Nobi Shinsuke. But before the black cat could act, it was hit on the head by a spoon that flew from behind. Meow. The black cat turned its head angrily and looked behind. Nobita was holding another spoon in his hand and staring at the black cat, while Nobita Daichi had nothing in his hand. Because the spoon that hit the black cat just now was thrown by Nobita Daichi. After seeing the black cat turn around, Nobita also threw the spoon in his hand at the black cat. Bang. Meow. The black cat rubbed its head, which was a little painful from being hit by the spoon, with its paws, and then looked at Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon with a fierce face. Doraemon, don't you have a shrinking lamp? Take it out. Nobi Daichi's face was not panicked at all, and he looked like he was sure of victory. Oh. Doraemon also reacted, and then reached into his 4-dimensional pocket to search. Doraemon, who used to take a long time to search for props, took out the shrinking lamp from the 4-dimensional pocket in an instant. Nobita, who was originally afraid that Doraemon would be as unreliable as before, now looked at Doraemon, who took out the shrinking lamp from the 4-dimensional pocket with expectation. In his opinion, they are now safe. However, after Doraemon took out the shrinking lamp from the 4-dimensional pocket and pointed it at the black cat still maintained its original size. At this time, the black cat rushed towards Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon. Doraemon threw the shrinking lamp away and ran to the back, saying in shock, "The shrinking lamp is out of power." Nobi Daichi, who was originally confident of winning, and Nobita, who was expecting it, were instantly petrified. In such an emergency, how could Doraemon play such a joke? Looking at the black cat that was not far away from him and Nobita, Nobi Daichi knew that he could not escape. Emperor Armor. Merch. A golden light flashed on Nobi Daichi's body, and when the black cat's claws were almost touching Nobi Daichi instantly completed the transformation. Then Nobi Daichi instinctively kicked the black cat in the face with a flying kick. Bang! The black cat was kicked away directly, and then fell from the table to the ground. The next moment, after kicking the black cat away, Nobi Daichi cancelled the transformation. Unless necessary, he didn't want Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Mako to know that he could transform into Emperor Man. Black Cat seemed to have been kicked hard by Nobi Daichi. He fell to the ground and cried a few times and lay on the ground for a while before slowly walking to the door and leaving Nobi's house. Walking to the edge of the table, looking at Black Cat's condition, Nobi Daichi estimated that Black Cat would never come to their house again. Thanks to the reader's EduI Basics Engu for the reward of 100 coins, and the reader Fiends for the reward of 4 coins. Chapter 98 Mission World, Continuation. Then Nobi Daichi turned around and walked towards the direction where Nobita and Doraemon were. Doraemon ran back a few steps, and when he found that Nobi Daichi and Nobita did not catch up, he immediately stopped and looked back. Just then he saw Nobi Daichi transformed into Emperor Man and kicked the Black Cat away. Then Doraemon breathed a sigh of relief, feeling relieved, because according to the current situation, it should be safe. Nobi Daichi quickly walked to the side of Doraemon and Nobita and joined the two. Then the three of them walked towards Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Mako, who were standing on the edge of the table. Nobita Mako and Nobi Shinsuke ran back, but when the two walked to the edge of the table and looked at the huge height difference, they hurriedly stopped. Just as Nobita Mako was supporting the half-drunk Nobi Shinsuke and didn't know what to do, she suddenly heard a cat screaming. Following the sound, they found a black cat lying on the ground. It was the black cat that stole half of their big tail sashimi. The black cat lay on the ground for a while, then got up and walked away slowly. Although Nobita Mako didn't know what was going on, they were fine at the moment. Then they heard footsteps from behind, and when they turned around, they saw Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon. When Nobita Mako looked back, Nobi Daichi and the other two had walked to a place several meters away from her and Nobi Shinsuke. Nobita, Daichi, Doraemon, do you know what's going on? Nobita Mako asked Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon in confusion. Ah, that was Nobi Daichi's transformation. After hearing what his mother Nobita Mako said, Nobita instinctively wanted to blurt out that it was Nobi Daichi who transformed into Emperor Man and solved the problem. But he was interrupted by Nobi Daichi before he finished speaking. Yes, Mom, it was just my brother and I who drove it down with a spoon. No, you can't drive the black cat down with a spoon, right? Of course not. Nobi Daichi took the initiative to explain. But when my brother and I hit the black cat with a spoon, the black cat accidentally stepped on empty space and then fell off the table. Stepped on empty space? Fell down by itself? Nobita Mako thought about the scene she had just seen, and then thought about the physical fitness of Nobita and Nobi Daichi, and still felt that it was a bit unrealistic. But apart from that, she couldn't think of what was going on with the black cat, so she simply stopped thinking about it. You guys find me some water. Nobita Mako didn't dwell on the issue of the black cat, but turned around and asked a question that puzzled Nobita and Doraemon. Nobi Daichi had some guesses after hearing what Nobita Mako said, but he didn't say it out loud and followed Nobita and Doraemon to find water. Soon, Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon found some water, but most of the water was in bowls and other containers, and they couldn't lift it at all. So they took another approach. They put the toilet paper into a bowl with water. Then they pulled the toilet paper out of the bowl, and the toilet paper pulled out of the bowl was already soaked. When Nobita Mako saw Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon each dragging a piece of toilet paper, at first, she was surprised, but after a little thought, she gradually understood the reason. After Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon walked in front of her, Nobita Mako slowly put the half-drunk Nobi Shinsuke flat on the table. Then Nobita Mako walked in front of Nobi Daichi and took the wet toilet paper from Nobi Daichi's hand. Pulling the soaked toilet paper, Nobita Mako returned to Nobi Shinsuke's side. Twisting the toilet paper in her hand, the water in the toilet paper was squeezed out immediately. Then Nobita Mako stretched the dripping toilet paper to Nobi Shinsuke's face. Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon, who were standing nearby, watched the scene quietly, not daring to breathe. Tick, tick, tick. Watching the water dripping from the wet toilet paper fall on Nobi Shinsuke's face. Nobita Mako may have disliked the water dripping too slowly, so she twisted the wet toilet paper in her hand hard. Wow. Drops. Wow. The water dripping on Nobi Shinsuke's face suddenly dripped much faster. Yeah. Nobita Mako nodded with satisfaction. In fact, she didn't want to do this. If she wanted to blame someone, she should blame Nobi Shinsuke himself. In such a dangerous situation, he still had the mood to drink. Drinking would be fine, but he was even half drunk. He didn't care about his own life and death. Nobita Mako's heart was full of anger, and all of it was vented at this time. Nobita and Doraemon looked at Nobita Mako like this, and they felt scared. Nobita Mako twisted the toilet paper in her hand without mercy. Therefore, the water flowing from the toilet paper not only flowed onto Nobi Shinsuke's face, but also flowed down Nobi Shinsuke's face onto Nobi Shinsuke's body. Hiss, it's so cold. Huh. What's going on? Under the dual effects of the sobering effect of the cold water and the coolness coming from his body, Nobi Shinsuke gradually regained consciousness. Nobi Shinsuke, who had just regained consciousness, wanted to open his eyes, but there was too much water on his face. He couldn't open his eyes for a while, so he wiped the water off his face with his hands. While he wiped the water off his face with his hands, Nobita Mako was still twisting the water in the toilet paper. After Nobi Shinsuke wiped his face several times, he reluctantly opened his eyes and saw what was above him. It turned out to be a roll of paper. A roll of toilet paper that was dripping with water. Of course, at this time he also discovered Nobita Mako standing next to him, and the pair of hands that were still twisting the wet toilet paper that made him look so wet now. Seeing that Nobi Shinsuke had woken up, Nobita Maki was not embarrassed at all. She naturally threw the wet toilet paper that was almost wrung out to the side. "Mom, what are you doing?" Nobi Shinsuke said a little angrily. He was soaked and felt very uncomfortable. "What am I doing? Isn't it obvious? I'm sobering you up." Nobita Maki looked at Nobi Shinsuke with some amusement, but the resentment in her eyes made Nobi Shinsuke's skin crawl. Hearing the word sober up said by Nobita Maki, Nobi Shinsuke immediately recalled what happened before. The black cat. By the way, where is the black cat? Looking at the somewhat nervous Nobi Shinsuke, Nobita Maki said unhappily, "It has run away. We are safe now." After hearing what Nobita Maki said, Nobi Shinsuke breathed a sigh of relief and stood up from the table. The next thing was that everyone climbed down through the thread with the toilet paper soaked in soy sauce. Chapter 99 Return to the zombie world. Soon everyone came to the box of big-tailed fish sashimi on the ground. Just as Nobi Daichi, Nobita, Doraemon, Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Mako were about to eat the squid with soy sauce and wasabi, they suddenly grew from small to large. This. Nobi Shinsuke and Nobita Mako looked at each other and then turned to look at Doraemon with a questioning look in their eyes. This should be because the effect of the Gulliver Tunnel has disappeared. It's okay, we can just drill it again. Doraemon said and removed the rod of the vacuum cleaner that blocked the small opening of the Gulliver Tunnel. Then he stood in front of the large opening of the Gulliver Tunnel and planned to drill in again. No need. But before Doraemon could drill in, he was stopped by Nobi Shinsuke. Huh? Doraemon looked at Nobi Shinsuke in confusion, not knowing what he meant or what he was going to do. Nobi Shinsuke picked up the box of big-tailed fish sashimi that fell on the ground and put it on the table. Then he said to Doraemon, Nobi Daichi, and Nobita with deep meaning, high-end food is something that people can only appreciate because they can only eat a little bit. Yes, so this half of the big-tail sashimi is enough. Nobita Mako rarely reached a consensus with Nobi Shinsuke and said to Nobi Daichi, Nobita, and Doraemon, well then. Doraemon knew that the matter was a foregone conclusion and did not say anything else, but picked up the Gulliver Tunnel on the ground and put it into the 4-dimensional pocket. At night, there were only a few scattered street lamps on the street outside the window, emitting dim lights. But inside the window, the restaurant of Nobita's house was brightly lit. We are going to start. Nobi Shinsuke, Nobita Mako, Nobi Daichi, Nobita, and Doraemon, who were gathered around the dining table, said excitedly as they looked at the big-tail sashimi on the table. After finishing the meal, Nobita Mako cleaned up at the table, while Nobi Shinsuke sat on the tatami in the living room and watched TV. Nobi Daichi, Nobita and Doraemon returned to the bedroom on the 3rd floor. Nobi Daichi read a book, and Nobita and Doraemon read a comic. It was getting late, so the three of them went to bed. No one talked all night, and the next day, when the morning light was dim, Nobi Daichi opened his eyes on time and got up. If there was no special situation, he would get up at this time. As for getting up late yesterday, it was purely an accident. Ding, you can clock in today. Do you want to clock in? Clock in. Clock in successfully. The second task is issued. Although no matter how long the host has been in other worlds, only 1 minute will have passed in this world, but it is better to be safe than sorry. So please find a sparsely populated place within 3 minutes to travel to other worlds. Nobi Daichi was shocked when he heard the system's words. You know, he just got up now, and Doraemon just climbed down from the closet. If he disappears from the spot right now, the consequences will be unimaginable. Even if he will return to this world again in 1 minute. However, after hearing the system's words that still have some humanity, although the system is just afraid of affecting the operation of this world, Nobi Daichi still breathed a sigh of relief. But he didn't dare to relax. After all, the system only gave him 3 minutes. After hurriedly putting on his clothes, Nobi Daichi opened the door and went out without even tidying up the quilt. Doraemon, who had just climbed down from the closet, looked at Nobi Daichi like this. He couldn't help but feel a little strange in his heart. After all, Nobi Daichi had never gone out without tidying up the quilt before. Seeing this, he had to put away what he wanted to say. He originally wanted to tell Nobi Daichi that he was going to the future department store to buy something. Then Doraemon walked to the desk, opened the desk, and planned to get in. But, after glancing at Nobita who was still sleeping, Doraemon pulled out the half leg that had been stretched into the drawer. Then Doraemon walked to Nobita's side, put his head close to Nobita's head, and put his mouth behind Nobita's ear. Doraemon suddenly shouted, "Nobita, get up." Then Doraemon ran to the desk, as if he was startled by a mouse, and got into the drawer in the blink of an eye. Bang! After Doraemon got into the drawer closed. Who is calling me? Nobita, who was lying on the tatami, opened his hazy eyes angrily, but found that he was the only one in the room. Nobita, who was already drowsy, saw that he couldn't find the real murderer who teased him, and he didn't have any idea of catching the murderer. Instead, he turned over and fell asleep again, and soon Nobita fell asleep again. Nobi Daichi hurried downstairs and walked towards the place he thought of in a hurry. That place was where Nobita, Shizuka, Fat Tiger and Sunia often played together, the open space. When there were less than 10 seconds left in the 3-minute time limit, Nobi Daichi finally arrived at the open space with a heavy breath. After a casual observation, Nobi Daichi walked to a corner of the open space. In front of that corner was a tree that could just cover him. When Nobi Daichi just ran to that corner, the 3-minute countdown displayed in front of him just turned into 0. Then the blue panel showing the countdown disappeared in front of Nobi Daichi, and at the same time the system's voice came out. The second task is being released. Please wait. Release successful. The plane shuttle function is activated. Started successfully. Start the journey. The next moment a soft white light enveloped Nobi Daichi. When the light dissipated, Nobi Daichi's figure also disappeared from the spot. This process was not long, just a moment. Mission World, Advanced Mutant Zombie World Introduction. Blue Star, similar to the Earth, has a population of billions. However, the outbreak of the zombie virus more than a decade ago reduced the population of billions to less than 200 million, and the remaining population is also decreasing. However, there is always a way out. When the zombie virus brought great disaster to mankind, some people among humans gradually awakened their superpowers and became the best among humans. The strength of these best humans gradually increased, and governments of various countries did not pay much attention to these superpowers at first. But when a superpower single-handedly destroyed an army of 100,000 zombies, this incident not only shocked all of humanity, but also made governments of various countries pay attention to superpowers. When the superpowers became stronger, humans forced by zombies finally began to fight back. But at the same time, some zombies among the zombies also mutated. Not only their strength increased, but also their consciousness. In the end, a situation of coexistence of humans and zombies was formed. After writing the Mission World, the theater version will be released. Chapter 100, Canyon Zombie Tide. Note, upgraded from the initial Mutant Zombie World. Mission objective, invite a king-level strongman to willingly join the chat group of the heavens. When Nobi Daichi saw the scenery in front of him clearly, 1,000 grass mud horses rushed through his heart, and he had no time to check the mission world and the content behind it. A golden light appeared on Nobi Daichi, and then Nobi Daichi instantly completed the transformation of the Emperor Armor. It turned out that this time the system actually teleported him directly to the zombie group. After punching a zombie, Nobi Daichi didn't care about being disgusted. Looking at the dense zombies around, Nobi Daichi couldn't help but feel numb. Looking at a direction with fewer zombies, Nobi Daichi stepped on the ground below and instantly jumped 4 or 5 meters high and then fell in that direction. When he landed, he naturally stepped on several zombies to death, but the filth produced by the zombies' death did not stain the Emperor Armor at all. Some zombies also approached Nobi Daichi and tried to attack him, but they couldn't break the defense of the Emperor's armor. Nobi Daichi kept repeating the previous actions. Jumped diagonally, landed. Jumped diagonally, landed. During this process, Nobi Daichi was also constantly observing the surrounding environment. At this time, Nobi Daichi was in a huge canyon. Through the gap above the canyon, he could see the sky covered with dark clouds. The direction he was fleeing to was an exit or an entrance of the canyon. Nobi Daichi didn't have time to care whether he was heading to the entrance or the exit. He just wanted to leave the zombie group quickly. The zombies around him were moving in that direction. Just as Nobi Daichi looked at the canyon exit only a few hundred meters ahead, he didn't have time to be happy when he felt a little bit of danger, but based on the principle of life first, Nobi Daichi stomped the ground below with his right foot, then jumped up and left the place where he was originally. After Nobi Daichi jumped away from his original position, he turned his head and looked at where he was standing. A large pit several meters wide had appeared where he had just stood, and cracks appeared on the ground around the pit. There was a zombie standing next to the pit. When Nobi Daichi looked back, the zombie had just retracted his fist that was hitting the ground. From the appearance, this zombie was no different from ordinary zombies. If there was a difference, it was that the eyes of ordinary zombies were muddy, while this zombie had a hint of clarity in his eyes, and his strength was much stronger than that of ordinary zombies. When the zombie saw that he had not hit Nobi Daichi, he retracted his fist and rushed towards Nobi Daichi again. When he rushed in front of Nobi Daichi, the zombie still punched Nobi Daichi. Nobi Daichi was not afraid at all, and he also punched the zombie. Then the fists of the zombie and Nobi Daichi came into contact. Boom. The zombie that was different from the ordinary zombie was directly blown away by Nobi Daichi. When it flew back, it also knocked away other zombies on the line. It doesn't look very powerful. Nobi Daichi looked at the power of his punch and said to himself. But what he didn't know was that the zombie that seemed vulnerable to him was actually a 3rd level existence in this world, enough to destroy a village with one zombie. While Nobi Daichi was talking to himself, the 3rd level zombie that was blown away by Nobi Daichi rushed towards Nobi Daichi again. Nobi Daichi, who had some understanding of his own strength, changed his previous attack method. When the zombie's fist was about to hit him, he grabbed the zombie's arm. Then he threw the 3rd level zombie directly downwards. Boom. A big pit instantly appeared below the 3rd level zombie, and the zombie was thrown by Nobi Daichi so hard that he couldn't get up for a long time. Nobi Daichi walked over and stepped on the head of the 3rd level zombie, and the head of the 3rd level zombie exploded directly. Seeing the scalded stuff flowing out of the zombie's head, Nobi Daichi still felt a little nauseous. But after seeing so many things before, he didn't have any extreme reactions. When Nobi Daichi was fighting with the 3rd level zombie, other ordinary zombies around him also attacked Nobi Daichi. But Nobi Daichi didn't take the attacks of those ordinary zombies seriously. After all, those ordinary zombies couldn't even break his defense. Although Nobi Daichi thought so, he was always vigilant in his heart. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry. What if a zombie with the same strength as the one he was fighting rushed out from those ordinary zombies? Even if there was another zombie stronger than the 3rd level zombie, what should he do? Nobi Daichi was not naive enough to think that there was only one zombie different from the normal zombie in this huge zombie tide. After confirming that the zombies under his feet were indeed dead, Nobi Daichi looked at the zombies that kept biting and scratching around him. Then he grabbed a zombie directly, and after swinging the zombie in his hand around, Nobi Daichi was temporarily empty. Seeing this, Nobi Daichi nodded with satisfaction, and then threw the zombie in his hand, which was already in a mess, away. Without caring about the life or death of the zombie he threw, Nobi Daichi jumped up again and rushed forward. When Nobi Daichi was only 1 or 200 meters away from the exit of the canyon, a zombie different from the normal zombie appeared again not far from Nobi Daichi. And when he saw Nobi Daichi, he rushed towards Nobi Daichi at a speed far exceeding that of ordinary zombies. The speed of the newly appeared zombie was even much faster than the speed of the third level zombie that Nobi Daichi had seen before. It was indeed much faster, at least in Nobi Daichi's current view. If Nobi Daichi knew enough about this world, he would know that the new zombie that appeared in front of him was different from ordinary zombies and was at the 4th level in this world. The 4th level zombie was several hundred meters away from Nobi Daichi. At the beginning, the speed it showed was only slightly faster than that of the 3rd level zombie. Nobi Daichi thought that it would take at least 10 seconds for the 4th level zombie to rush to him, so he didn't pay much attention. But the next moment he found out that he was wrong, and he was wrong in a ridiculous way, and he suffered a big loss because he didn't pay much attention. The zombie rushed to Nobi Daichi in just a few moments. This 4th level zombie did not attack Nobi Daichi with fists like the previous 3rd level zombie. Instead, it grabbed Nobi Daichi with one claw, and the speed of the attack was as fast as the speed at which it ran towards Nobi Daichi. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.